Welcome back to the No Effects Podcast. I'm your host, is Lane, and as always, joined by this guy over here, Kirk. It's been way too long, and if you don't follow either of us anywhere on other various channels, we've given reasoning, but you may have missed it. In the case of you just being a podcast listener, well, we haven't been around because my computer took a little bit of a shit. I ended up having to get a new motherboard, but it was a big ordeal, took way too long, and I don't really want to go into it. Just safe to say that I was MIA for almost 2 months, and then we got back to our streams and gameplay videos, but just have not had time to get together because of real life bullshit. You know, that's just life and the way it is. But we're hoping, starting with this episode, that we'll get back into our more normal, at least once a month post, if not the twice a month, like we've always wanted to do. But, you know, again, we always put everything with a little asterisk because life is, you know, comes first. We have families and other things that are going on, and, you know, shit happens. So, but it's nice to be back. We Absolutely. Kind of had, I don't want to call it FOMO, but like we basically missed out on a lot of stuff because of me being gone. Like, I saw the spoilers for the last couple sets that came out, but we were not able to get together and talk about them for those reasons. So today we were hoping to do kind of a quick run through, because it's old news at this point, of the Murders at Karlov Manor set, because we've done this for every set since we started the podcast and want to keep the tradition going. It was not a great set, in my opinion. There's not a ton of good cards. There's more than what we're going to talk about here that could be viable and are probably good for casual or other formats, but as far as like really good CDH cards, these aren't it. And we've got the few that we could think of. And then the most recent thing to be spoiled is the Universes Beyond Fallout set, which I don't know if it's out yet, but it's coming out very soon. It may or may not be out by the time you guys hear this, but either way, it is very close on the horizon, and it was something I was really looking forward to because I have enjoyed the Fallout games for a very long time. A little underwhelming, not a whole lot to talk about here. We had a hard time even coming up with 10, so it's still... The precons look like they're going to be fun, and spoilers, we do have on our next upcoming stream, we're going to be playing the precons against each other with the two of us and our buddies Joe and Rev, and then following the precon game, we are going to play some CEDH brews that we built out of what commanders we could find that seemed okay from the sets, so should be okay. I think it's going to be a good time. I mean, I enjoy playing a precon once in a while, but from what I hear, precons these days are a lot better put together than they used to be, but I don't know. I haven't played with one in a long time, so...
Yeah, we'll find out, right?
Yeah. I guess that's not entirely true. I played the Warhammer 40k ones, and they were fine, but I never felt like I was doing anything super powerful, and I guess that's kind of the precon problem, but I digress. We get a new one, or 3 or 4 or 5, 10, 15 every fucking year, so, you know, it's nothing special anymore. Kirk, is there anything you want to fill everybody in on since we've been gone for a while? Anything new, anything exciting coming up with your
nothing
other
too
projects?
Crazy for me. Just been going full steam on working on. I do another little channel that I think I've mentioned before right now that with some friends here locally that we do. It's Amateur Hour, MTG. So we've just been jamming some games out there. That's about it for me.
So I guess without further ado, we'll jump into what we wanted to talk about with the Karlov set. So we narrowed it down to 10 cards that we think are probably going to see the most play in CDH, but then we also wanted to talk about a couple potential commanders that we've already played and or have seen in action. There's a couple other besides these that might be halfway decent, but none that I was overly excited about. I like this one, which we'll start off with because I built the deck and I played it. I think your brother played it as well. It seems pretty good. If you guys happen to catch the gameplay video of us playing, you'll see me win with it on turn 3. So, I mean, not bad. And it's Naya.
Come on, buddy.
I mean, this is old news at this point. People already know these cards. Like, everything is beyond spoiler season at this point. But so it is Descana, the Rage Monitor, if you would do the honors and read that one off for us.
Yep, absolutely. It is 2 colorless and then Naya, so red, green, white. A 5/5 legendary creature. Bear is its creature type. It's a big bear. And when Descana, the Rage Mother, enters the battlefield, draw a card for each creature you control with with base power and toughness 2/2. And whenever a creature you control with base power and toughness 2/2 attacks, it gets +3/+3 until end of turn.
Yeah, so card advantage in the command zone, always good. In these colors, lots of good bears, so to speak. And the reason they call them bears, and it's been a term of endearment for anything that falls under the category. But the original bears were like grizzly bears or something, Baldivian bear, woodland bear. There's a few of them, but they were all just vanilla 2/2s for 2 mana. It was 1 green and 1 colorless most of the time. That has become kind of the definition of a bear. And then from there, the term is kind of evolved into being called hate bears because there tend to be 2/2s for 2-ish that have some sort of ability that hates on the game state. So, for instance,
sort of stacks effect. Or
Collector Roof is a bear in the sense that it's 2 mana 2/2, but it also shuts off all artifact abilities in the game, and everybody hates that. So, there are a lot of them that are really good in these colors, and as long as you have a few of them out, as soon as you cast your commander, you are going to draw some cards. The cool thing, though, is that you really only need one, because this can be a food chain commander, and you can just do the food chain thing, make infinite mana, recast your commander, draw your whole deck, cast Finale, win the game, yada yada. There's a couple other cool things that can be done, but then also just in the, say you get into one of those mid-range slugfests where nothing's happening, you cast this, mid-game when you've already got 3 or 4 2/2s out. Maybe they're stacksy pieces that are kind of shutting other people off from doing what they want to do. Now you're just getting card advantage. You start swinging with those 2/2s. Now they're 5/5s. You can put some pressure on people pretty quickly. So it's got kind of a pivot point if needed, but most of the time you are trying to go for either, Dockside, Emil, Teamer, Loops, and then after you've made your infinite mana, then you start flickering your commander, and as long as you have 1 2/2 out, you just draw your deck and you win from there. It seems powerful. Like I said, I pulled it off turn 3. Got one of those said loops and did the exact same thing. I believe I got a treasure, the Mind Goblin, and a Dockside. So I got a crazy amount of mana all at once, and then I was just like, oh, cool. Well, this guy's a 2/2, so now I just flicker Dockside a bunch, and then I flicker my commander, I draw all my deck, Finale, kill everyone. Play your creatures, yada yada. So it does the thing that Naya does, and you could probably jam Hulk stuff in here if you wanted to. Me and Kirk were just talking about another brew he's got coming up that we won't discuss, but also Naya, and we figured out that there's like 50 fucking layered combos, so the colors are good. It does the thing. If you like creature combo, it's great. You're still going to lose the turn 2 ad nauseous, but, it is what it is.
Yep. The nice thing about this is it lends itself to playing, like you said, there's that attempt to slow the game down to the mid-range, and then if you get in a mid-range slugfest with a bunch of stacks pieces, and you can turn them into a bunch of 5/5 attackers, you should probably find a way to turn the corner at some point. Kind of like Jetmir almost, similar effects.
Yep. I think you could probably run Jetmir in the 99 and just make them even bigger if you really wanted to. You could also probably do like extra combat shit because your board's going to be huge. But besides all of the different ways you could go about it, it just seems pretty strong, and I think it's competitively viable at least.
Kind of like the extra combat idea too, because I think this would reach combat, so your 2/2 would become a 5/5 and then an 8/8 and so on and so forth, right?
That I don't know, but that's an interesting thought.
Hilarious.
But I don't want to spend too much time on any one card because we have a lot to go over. So the next one, you read it off, but this is the one that Kirk ended up playing in the stream, and it didn't do part of what it wants to do, but it's still interesting. Anyhow.
I think I won one game in the stream. You just didn't edit it.
I meant the Clash.
Remember it.
The Clash part just never worked.
Yeah, it happens. So I built Marvo Deep Operative. It's 3 colorless, a blue and a black. It's a Dimir commander, legendary creature, Octopus Rogue. Bizarre. And whenever Marvo the Deep Operative attacks, clash with defending player, it is a 1/8. So it's going to be hard to kill it in combat. Whenever you win a clash, you draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value 8 or less without paying its mana cost.
Which that's insane. But the problem is winning the clash. And I think every single time you were either lower or equal during the clash. At least on stream.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch it. I have won a lot of games with this deck because you are in the best.
No, that's not true. I think you did manage to pull off a peer off of it on one of the games.
Could have been.
I think. But yeah, I mean, being able to just flip a pier, like, hey, just cast this pier for free.
Well, and that's the gross thing about this too, is if you just, unlike some other stuff, if like the Yenet, the Sphinx, which I also play occasionally, if you just win a clash with a 2/2 or a 2-mana spell and your opponent has a land on top, if you'd happen to have drawn your Peer into the Abyss turns earlier, then you can just cast it for free. It doesn't have to be the card you reveal.
Right.
You can even win the clashing card you won with, you can put on the bottom of your library and draw a new card if it's not something you want in hand. So anyway,
right.
It's a fun deck. Yeah, it's exactly what it's trying to do. I'm on Hullbreaker loops and I'm on Peer to the Abyss. It's not exactly a Hullbreaker outlet in the command zone. I know that's the new trend in Dimir decks, is to run Hullbreaker even when your commander isn't like Talion or other things. But with this deck, I'm really trying to loop, or I'm trying to get a Peer into the Abyss off most of the time. And if I do, chances are I can draw enough rocks and things to then cast the Hullbreaker and then win from there, looping whatever. Orcish Bowmaster. I play the Ugin, the Spear Dragon, because you can cast it for free with this stupid card. I mean, it's a pretty fun deck. I've had pretty good luck with it. It's Dimir, so you also have Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah, I was going to say.
To win out of nowhere, so.
You have all the best tutors, all the best counters, easy win cons, and then convoluted bullshit, which is right up your
super
alley.
hard to kill commander is a 1/8. So, I mean, obviously all the exile removal still gets them, but if they want to fire off, a toxic deluge for 8, feels kind of bad when you're killing a 1/8 anyway.
Yeah. Still, yeah, it was pretty cool. It does some stuff. And again, like, you can pretty much play any commander that's Dimir, and it can literally not be part of your game plan at all, and you can still win games. So that is kind of the floor when it comes to CDH. So. Sure. And then we've got one last one, which I am not super high on, but I guess you've seen it in action and you think it's cool, so take it away.
All right. It is the Pride of Whole Clade. 10 and a green to cast it.
Oh, only 11 mana.
It is a legendary creature, Crocodile Elk Turtle, and it's a 2 power, 15 toughness defender.
It reminds you of that some green or Simic thing that was like a jellyfish, octopus, something. Like, what are these creature types?
This feels like it should be in Fallout, some kind of strange mutant. But anyway, this spell costs X colorless, less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. So that's this is the worst jeweled commander or jeweled lotus commander I think they've ever printed. Because why would you play a jeweled lotus when you could just play a shield sphere and have it cost 6 colorless less? Or you could play a what's the 0/3 for 0? I can't even think what the hell it's called.
Phyrexian Walker.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So any of that kind of stuff, any of your defenders with huge butts.
Even Ornithopter just reduces this by 1, and you didn't pay anything for it. Or 2, yeah.
2. Yeah, so this one's a goofy one for that. It's actually, the reason this is really cool is I have seen this cast on turn 2. I've seen it cast on turn 3 a lot. It's not hard to do for an 11 mana commander. That seems kind of busted. And then it's got an ability. It's 2 blue and 2 colorless. Until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0 gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw cards equal to its toughness and can attack as though it didn't have defender. So you could target itself. It becomes a 3/15 that can attack. If it deals damage to your opponent, you draw 15 cards.
That's that part sells me a bit, but the issue I have is like, so it makes me feel like you want to play walls and other, creatures like we discussed that are just 0 drops that have big butts, and they're just shitty cards. Like, they don't do anything for your game plan. So you're playing a bunch of crap just to get this guy out, and then if he gets removed, then you're still in the same boat, I guess. You're not paying too much because you still got the big butts around, but that feels like a weakness. The cool part is that it has the Doran or the Arcades effect, where you can give defenders the ability to attack, which is kind of the same thing with like Rasad and some of the there's been a few creature cards that this sort of thing matters. It's in bad colors for most of that, though. I think there's only it. There's a blue card that allows you to do it, and all the other cards I think are in like white and green. Or anyway, the point being, you're not going to be able to, if you do go the route of like putting a bunch of defenders or creatures with 0 power in the deck just to make this guy cheaper, they're all going to be fucking useless until he's out. Yeah, they're blockers and whatever, but if they aren't flying or they don't have... it feels like a lot of limitations and then a lot of hoops to jump through to get there, but I believe you that somebody's figured out how to make it seem pretty good. I don't like it.
I'll borrow the deck and play it on stream soon. I promise. We'll see what happens with it. So the cool thing about it too is it's another ISO Rev commander. Just what we need is another one, right? Because this is an infinite mana outlet. You can activate this infinitely and attack somebody. If you can get through one creature with each of your opponents, activate this infinitely, you will kill them. The draw triggers will go on the stack. The state-based action will check that they're all dead, and you win the game.
Sure.
So it is an infinite mana outlet too.
Yeah, and it's Simic. So like Simic's you're still going to have good creature tutors to get things that you might need. You're going to have all of your good counter spells. You've got artifact tutors. You've got spell tutors. So I mean, I need to see it. I need to see it. I on paper, I don't like it. But I'll
tell you this much, Elaine. It plays a card that you absolutely love from another format that makes it pretty damn good, and that is in the 99 or in the 99. It plays Sword Coast Sailor.
I do like that card. That's what I played with Rasad. And Rasad felt really good because it was a bunch of like 1-drops with big butts, so you could play out like 4 or 5 of them by the time you had the mana to even cast Rasad, and then you cast him, and then now all of a sudden they can all attack. Pretty cool. But that's a whole different fucking format where the threats are a lot different.
If you have this in play and you play Sword Coast Sailor for 4 mana, you make this a 3/15 unblockable, and you draw 15 cards when it hits. Pretty good.
Yeah, that's not terrible. It does feel like a lot of hoops to jump through, but I can see where you could build it properly to where it wouldn't be that bad. I don't like it.
Or a Thrasios, kind of a weird variation. It might not be great. It's not an S tier commander by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, but you could be running Thrasios and Seedborn and Kinnan and all those things in this, and still have like Kinnan Basalt Monolith things you could be doing to then also do the infinite outlet with the commander. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's Simic. Simic's been doing bullshit forever. They have all the win cons.
So
outside of Demir, it works.
We'll see what you think about it. It might maybe I'll eat my words and maybe I'll just flame out and do nothing. We'll find out.
Yeah, no, I believe that you'll do something and we'll be like, wow. But I don't think it's going to make me like the deck.
That's fair.
All right, moving on to what we actually think are the good cards from here. There's a couple that are probably the absolute best, and the rest of these are kind of not necessarily reaching, but they're just we either only can think of a 1 or 2 homes, or maybe can't think of a home at all, but like it's gonna have a home at some point. Somebody's gonna figure it out. Anyway, we'll just run through them real quick. First one, Doorkeeper Thrall.
All right, that one is 1 white and 1 for a creature Thrall. It's a 1/2 flash flying creature, and it says artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. So it's
Hushbringer, Hushring
probably
Griff.
the best one of these they've ever printed, right?
Isn't Hushbringer Flash too, or is it Hushring Griff is Flash?
Hushbringer Griff is Flash. I don't remember if Hushbringer is or is not.
I don't think Hushbringer is. I think it's Flying Lifelink, and then the text, same text. So it's just another one of these effects. It's Hate Bears for white. White loves.
Hushbringer does not have Flash. So
okay, it is Flying Lifelink, I believe. And then Hushring Griff has it. And then there's Tocatli Honor Guard, which also does not have Flash and just has the text. So this one's a flyer and a Flash with that text. It is arguably the best version.
And here's the reason it is the best version of all these. In today's meta in CDH, it doesn't just stop creatures entering the battlefield from triggering. It also shuts off artifacts entering the battlefield from triggering. So your warning protection is not there.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
And in conjunction with stuff like the Daunting Dismantler or Blind Obedience, which you're probably running if you're running this card, now things are coming in tapped and not having ETB effects. Like, people just don't want to play anything until they remove it. Or they play their shit and they're at a significant disadvantage.
Yep, and being a flyer, you can attack into it, like if you have Timna, etc. But that's the reason. I mean, I think when going way back to that set review, I'd have to rewatch it. We liked the One Ring. We knew it was good. I didn't understand at the time how powerful that protection for one turn really freaking
I don't think
be.
anybody did. We never looked at that.
It's dumb. It's so good. And this says, nope, not this
Yeah.
one. So it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, there have been a
Obviously,
couple
cutting off
times.
the dock sides, the Thassa's Oracles, the other major win cons of the format is obviously huge, but
So this is another one of those cards though that it's ambiguous, or it's not ambiguous. Not unanimous, but like it's ultimately going to be played in most decks that want to run stacks pieces.
like universally run, basically.
Sure, yeah. That wasn't the word, but I can't remember what the word is. Either way, it's the kind of thing that you would play in most decks that are running hate bears and things. The issue I find with it is like I was thinking about jamming it into like Winota because I run a lot of stacks pieces in Winota, but then I'm like, ugh, there's a lot of ETBs in Winota that I want, so I don't want to run this. Same reason why I'm not running Hushbringer or Hushwing Griff or other stuff. But there are decks where you do not run a single ETB creature. Your commander doesn't have an ETB. You don't care about ETBs. So you're running Torpor Orb and you're running like all 4 of these because just fuck everybody else's ETBs. Same with, it's the same reason why, a particular deck might run Thalia and Thorn and Glow Rider and blah, blah, blah. Or they won't because they either don't care about taxing non-creature stuff because they're a creature list, or you do care about that and you're okay with paying the tax. It's kind of a trade-off. This is a symmetrical effect is the main point. If it was flash flying your opponent's shit, it would be absolutely slam dunk in every single white deck. Yeah. Done. But I think hate pieces should be symmetrical most of the time, to be honest.
I think I would try it in Winota to see. I mean, I don't know. You would know better than I the number of ETBs you're running, but being a non-human, it's another attacker with evasion, so I don't know. It seems really good. And
it is a thing that like I said, I considered because it's a non-human, so it's something that could come down early and then give you Winota triggers. The issue I find is like I'm running both recruiters plus like Rick ETBs gives you stuff. There's like that Phalanx creature, the Soul Bond to make the extra combats. That's an ETB. There's a few things, and it's stuff that's kind of critical that I don't want to like shut off incidentally, but at the same time, it's the kind of thing that if you did drop it early, you're shutting off people's early dock sides and things, and then they probably kill it, and then you don't have to worry. So again, it's a trade-off. It's one of those things that you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of it in your deck. So it's not ubiquitous is the word I was thinking of. So it's not that, but it is highly considerable, like in anything that's trying to slow other people down. I think it's a really good card.
The reason I love this too, and speaking strictly in CEDH terms, being a creature that you can flash in to stop win cons, it gets around Ranger Captain of Eos. That's huge. That's a big gotcha kind of moment. So I like this card a lot. I think it Stacks is in such a hard place right now because we're in that, as everybody likes to coin the phrase, mid-range hell that we're in, and Stacks has a really tough time in that mid-range hell, which it's better in a turbo meta because you know kind of what enemy number 1 is. If you can slow down turbo with Stacks enough, you can win maybe. In mid-range,
it's kind of like what we were talking about the other day with like Containment Priest. Like it's so good, but it's like you need it at the right time in the right deck against the right deck, and it's just like it's a strong card, but it's not something you run in every deck, and it's not something that's going to see great value in every deck. But there's going to be that game where you have it, and somebody does something, and you're like, "Ha, Containment Priest," and they're like, "Fuck, you fucked me."
Right. And this has a similar effect. Like I like the flash on this a lot more because you don't have to just throw it out there as lightning bait, lightning bolt bait or whatever, deadly rollick, etc. You can hold it back and then hopefully interrupt the win, which is pretty freaking gross because
and it's a mana cheaper than Hushwing Griff was. So
and it's a 1/2 instead of a 2/1, so it doesn't get Bowmaster. Well, Bowmaster wouldn't kill it on ETB, but they would still kill it on draw if it was a 2/1. This one they got to draw 3 cards.
Either way, super good card. It's going to see a lot of play. I just don't know. I haven't put it in a list yet because I keep coming up with like the same arguments that I've just had where I'm like, is this good enough in this deck? But I think I'm going to find a spot. I know I have some decks that run Torpor Orb, and this is probably going to go in those. I just haven't delved that deep through my lists. So moving on, next one we got is Unexplained Absence.
Yep, this one's one that's so-so, but we think it might have a home. 1 white and 3 instant. For each player, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller cloaks the top card of their library. Cloak card, put it onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature with Ward 2. Turn it face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature card.
So this has the it's basically minus the cloak shit. It's 1 mana more Grasp of Fate. However, Grasp of Fate is 2 white pips and one. This is 3 and 1 white pip, so maybe a little easier to cast. Grasp of Fate is also an enchantment, whereas this is an instant, so this can be done on somebody's end step to get rid of multiple pieces. And because it does say, which we weren't sure initially, but we read the card, which explains the card. So it is up to 1, so you don't have to hit yourself. But if you want to cloak something off top of your library, maybe you already know what's there. You know it's a creature. You want it cloaked with some to pull some shenanigans later. Cool, that's a benefit. If not, you just don't target yourself. You hit Homeboy's wrist stick. That guy's one ring, and that guy's mana crypt. And cool, all that shit's gone. The thing is that they're actually just exiled. Unlike Grasp of Fate, where if you get rid of the Grasp of Fate, they come back. In this case, they're just gone, and they get to cloak something off the top. And if that's not a creature, it's just you basically took away, like if it's an Adnaz, you just took away their Adnaz until it goes into their grave, and maybe they can use it, but most people aren't running anything that lets them cast an Adnaz from the grave. So it's likely that you just double hose them. If it is a creature, okay, so they get to gotcha moment sometime, flip a Draneth or something, and that fucks you maybe. Unlikely. I don't know. I think it's 4 mana is kind of expensive, but if you're in mono or like Boros or Selesnya, I think this could be worth playing, because if you're in anything with green, especially, you're gonna have mana. Like, so getting to 4 mana is no problem, and even in Selesnya Boros, I don't have a problem with getting mana in any deck really, unless you're just absolutely mana screwed. It's pretty rare though. So for the most part, I think this is going to be easily castable, and it's gonna, I mean, being able, because One Ring is indestructible, being able to just exile it and it's gone forever, pretty good. I think that alone makes it good. But it also is it's an instant, so like somebody can play their Underworld Breach and you can just exile it. They can play their, well, Dasa's doesn't work because the trigger goes on a stack, but Dockside doesn't work because the trigger goes on the stack. But if they're trying to flicker, maybe, or if they play the Emil, you hit the Emil while they try to flicker, yada yada. So it's got some gotcha moments, and being able to hit everybody around the table is pretty powerful, because there's a lot of times where there are multiple things. There's this guy that's got a stack piece stopping you. There's this guy that's got the One Ring, and there's this guy that's got the wrist stick. You get rid of all 3 at once. I think it's probably going to see play. I'll probably end up slotting into some of my decks.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it. Like, I was talking a little bit before this. We were talking, and there are in corner case commanders that like Hinata. It's the blue, white, red 4/4 flying thing that makes everything that's target 1 cheaper for each target or something weird. Or this would cost 1 white mana. It'd be gross. I do like what you were talking about. Like, you can screw up top deck tutors with this hardcore. Somebody vamp tutors end of turn. You're like, okay, cool. After that resolves, exile 1 thing from you, and you. Oh, you're whatever you're vamp tutored for is now your 2/2. Your bear. Enjoy.
Yeah.
So,
and if it wasn't a creature, good. If it was Dockside, well then, But most top deck, I mean, if it's not Vamp Tutor, you already know what's on top, so you get that information and can make that choice. If it is Vamp Tutor, well, hopefully you get a spell and you double hose them. But yeah, I think it's
there you go.
I think it's worthwhile. And like again, like people used to be hard rule 4 mana or more was like win con territory, but at this point, like anything that's like under 5 is pretty playable, as long as your whole list isn't that.
Yeah, as long as you're not on Adnaz and your whole list is full of them. Yeah, and then like you said, being able to hit, remove multiple things from multiple players, and it's pretty solid to get rid of multiple problems. I could even see exiling your own permanent if you need a 2/2 to.
That was my point, was that, like, say you did a Worldly Tutor and you put your Dockside on there. I mean, people are going to know, but you still cloak it. It has Ward. They can't do anything about it, and then you flip it later and you still get your Dockside. So,
for sure.
You're not probably tricky. Well, if you're the one doing the Vamp Tutor, maybe you put a creature on top like a Razaketh or something, and then you boop, boop, and then they're like, yeah, we don't care about your little 2/2, and then you're like, it's a Razaketh. Surprise!
I mean, there's even a really jacked up world where you you use this and like a Shorikai or something. If you can't cast your commander, you cloak something of your own to have a 2/2 that you polymorph away into whatever the hell else you want.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even care, but if you're in a polymorph list, this is perfect. This gives you your target to polymorph away, and that's great. I didn't even think of that, but that's good. Either way, it has lots of uses, and I think we've already just given away enough that it's good.
Yeah, it's worth trying.
What's the next one?
The next one is one that I'll struggle with this. Is it Delny? Is that how you would say it?
I would say Delny, yeah.
That's what I'm going with. Delny Streetwise Lookout. I don't know why that's for me to look at and pronounce, but here it is. 1 white and 2 colorless. A legendary creature. It's a human scout. It is a 2/2, so here's your bear power toughness again, people.
Woo.
And then you've got creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked. Creatures with power 3 or greater. And if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time.
So this is another Panharmonicon effect, which we've seen a billion of. Like, there was Panharmonicon, then there was, Taste of Karlov, which was, like, death triggers doubled. Then there's been... I can't even remember all of them at this point.
Homing Throne and yada, yada, yada.
There's a lot of different things that affect... there was... Ishin, I think, was the Mardu, like, combat triggers doubled. There's... I want to say another one besides that, and then there's this one. So there's been basically double your triggers on pretty much fucking everything, and you can also look at like the cards that get run in like Krark, like that shaman and things, where it's like doubles up the triggers of do, and then there's that Dean,
whatever it is, yeah,
the Dean something, the blue card that like doubles up triggers of like wizards or some shit. Like, there's been a lot of these printed.
I think is what that one is.
Yeah. Like, that was OG Dominaria from like 6-7 years ago. I don't know. Mm-hmm. They've been doing this a lot. So this is another one of those, but it also has that nice little clause of like, if you swing at somebody that has 3/3s with your 2/2s, they can't block. So, yeah, maybe you get in. I think it's really good in Tymna, because obviously it's probably going to get through most of the time unblockable. Maybe not it, but other things like Tymna could get through unblockable. And then you're going to get double Tymna triggers, so you're going to draw more cards. And there's a lot of other 2/2s and things. Was it just strictly 2/2s?
2 or less. So your Dockside ETB's doubled. It's got a lot.
Yeah, so lots of things that are going to trigger, but my issue, I mean, outside of Tymna decks, I haven't found, like, I put this on considering on a ton of lists because I was like, dude, this card looks so great. And then the more I think about it, the more I'm like, is it really? Like, I was thinking about putting in Sithis because, like, double Sithis triggers is kind of the same as double Tymna triggers, where it's like, okay, you know, the do happens. Sithis triggers twice, I draw 2, gain 2. That seems pretty good, but it also feels like win more in a sense. Like, why am I playing this over like another enchantment instead? I don't know. And then I was thinking about it with Winota, and like, there's something, I run like 40 some odd creatures in my Winota list, and there's like half of them are 2/2s or 2 power at least. So that's a lot of unblocked attacks that can give me Winota triggers to kind of snowball. But Winota herself doesn't double trigger, so it's like, why? Who cares? Like, what else do I have that's triggering that matters? I think you probably came up with, outside of Tymna, the other best one, which was
Derevi. This card's gross in Derevi, I think. Just the ETB on Derevi to untap 2 things, and then for every creature you hit with, which again, this is going to make them harder to block, you're going to double every one of those Derevi triggers. That seems gross in Derevi.
If it was a warrior, fucking Najila card, because then it's a warrior on top of fucking being able to do Derevi shit. I mean, Derevi already can go infinite pretty easily, and this making it double probably makes that even easier. So yeah, I could see that, but I don't really know anybody that's playing Derevi anymore. Derevi is kind of relegated to the 99 and Najila in most cases, so it doesn't mean that they're not out there. But
like, this is a spoiler alert for his lane with his busted computer over the last 2 months. It came back for a little bit. You're seeing a little bit more of it in tournament play. It's still, I mean, I wouldn't call it super common by any nature, but you definitely might see it at a tournament.
I mean, Derevi was always
one of the bigger comedian, I think, played it in the tournament and did really well. I don't know where he finished in the tournament, and he made a tech video and etc. And anytime that guy does anything CEDH related, it seems to make a little bit of a ripple effect across different metas. So who knows?
For sure. So again, it seems like a very powerful card. Maybe because this happens in Magic all the time, something gets printed in a set, and then a year to 2 years later, something else gets printed that just makes it go fucking crazy. So maybe we just don't have the commander for it yet, or Perhaps I'm just not thinking of it. I mean, I've got 30 years of fucking magic in my brain, so it's hard to access all of that at all times. So
Yeah, I
we do
think
have cool
you'll
tools
see it
to
also in
look
like
stuff up.
Tim to Malcolm decks and stuff like that. Will definitely play it. I think just Devil Treasures on Malcolm's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't argue with that. It's definitely got its uses. The first clause, but the second clause, very good. This would be great if it was able to be played in the Simic Commander that does combat damage, deal draw cards.
Edric.
Yeah, if you could play this in Edric, that would probably be pretty busted because I'm pretty sure Edric's a 2/2.
I think so. Yeah, there you go. Be careful if you're playing against an Edric player. Don't play this because their clones will clone the shit out of this.
Yeah, that is a thing, I suppose. All right, enough on that. What's next?
Up next, we have Demand Answers. 1 red and 1 instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or discard a card. Draw 2 cards.
So this is kind of a strictly better Thrill of Possibility. It's instant speed still. Thrill of Possibility is 1 in a red. Discard a card, draw 2 cards. Instant speed. You do it on somebody's end step, blah. This is the same thing. You discard a card, you do the same. Or you have the option to sacrifice a clue, sacrifice a food, sacrifice a junk, sacrifice a fucking whatever. Whatever you have in your deck that's an artifact that you don't give a shit about.
Are rad counters artifacts?
No, those are counters that get put on players. We've already got like 6 or 7 types of tokens that can be generated that are common enough in CDH that you don't give a shit about. You're going to sack to draw some cards. It's kind of like the least annoying version of Red's card draw because all Red card draw is draw and discard, or discard and then draw. Yeah, it's discard and then draw. It's rummage instead of loot. I don't remember which is which, but blue is blue is draw and discard. Red is discard then draw. In this case, you are sacrificing something to draw the 2 cards. It's kind of like Kadoltha Rebirth and the other one that came out a while back, which also kind of made it better. Kadoltha Rebirth, where it was either blow up their artifact or blow up your own artifact and then get the tokens. So in that regard, it's just a slightly power crept. You probably, if you're playing this, you're probably still playing Thrill. You might even still be playing some of the other worse versions, but
Faithless Looting and such.
Yeah, but it's still better, and that's really all there's to say. It's nothing amazing, but it is just an incrementally better card that's already seeing play in a lot of decks. So
for sure. And if you're in some kind of like red white, like I have a Zabaz deck that's on like KCI loops that I haven't busted out in a hot minute, but even in that, being able to sacrifice an artifact is sometimes a huge bonus because you sack one of your little retriever type things. So it has a slight upside in that. So
I mean, even if it's as stupid as it sounds, maybe you got your 1 ring really early, and your 1 ring is going to kill you because you've got it up to like 5 counters, and you're down below like 15 life, and you're like, sack it, draw 2 cards. You still got to draw some cards, and now it's not going to kill you. You know, maybe your Mana Crypt's going to kill you, so you just sack it. You know, there's a lot of edge cases here too, but generally speaking, you're going to try and sack some kind of treasure token or whatever token just to draw some cards.
Tapped mana vault that you're never going to untap, exactly.
Or your soldier artifact token that got created by whatever commander or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of different random things that are just artifacts that you can sack. So it seems pretty good. Next up is arguably one of the better cards in the set. It's Forensic Gadgeteer.
Maybe the best card in the set. Time will tell. I think it might be. 1 blue
and 2 colorless. At least, at worst, it's top 3.
Yeah. 1 blue and 2 colorless for a 2/3 Vidalcan Artificer Detective. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, investigate. Yeah, right? Jeez. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, investigate, which is create a clue token, and activated abilities of artifacts you control cost 1 colorless less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana cost in that cost to less than 1 mana. So boom, it makes clues when you cast artifacts, so your clues only cost 1 to sacrifice.
That's nice. And then it's also just another Elsha, Joyra, blah, 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 enabler, because you're always looking for that cost reduction for those decks that are doing top stuff, where you always needed... It doesn't work for top, though, because you still have to pay 1 to cast your top. It doesn't lower the casting cost of top, but it just... When you cast the top off the top, you get a clue.
So then it helps you draw through your deck. There's a
All right.
there's a
Yeah.
whole
It's activated cost. My bad.
convoluted combos with this that are just ridiculous. I mean, the easiest one is Basalt Monolith. This with Basalt Monolith, you've basically assembled your mono blue Kinnan. And Basalt Monolith costs 2 to untap, taps for 3, 2 to untap, tap for 3, wash, rinse, repeat. Boom. You have your mono blue Kinnan Basalt Monolith infinite mana combo. That also probably made you a clue that you have 1 draw with. I mean, that's dumb.
And that's probably in like Urza.
Oh god.
Otherwise,
Wet
mono
Dream
blue.
was this exact card. This exact card is Urza's Wet Dream.
Yeah, for sure. You don't even have to be in mono blue though. Like even I said, sure. Elsha and Joyra probably still want this just because of all the artifacts they have that might want that cost reduction. Anything that's an artifact heavy list is going to like this.
The biggest combos you see with it, a lot of people are playing this with Phyrexian Metamorph or the Flesh Duplicate or whatever, and Sensei's top, and Urza deck, right? So you cast your Sensei's top, you make 2 clues, you tap it to draw 1, you tap one of the clues for blue mana, tap the other one, draw to sack it, draw your top, wash, rinse, repeat, you can draw your whole deck. I mean, there's just a bunch of weird layered combos in Urza specifically, but in anything that's blue artifact heavy or blue artifact centric that this just enables. It's gross.
The only big negative I would say is probably that it is going to feed Dockside.
Yep,
That's
but
about
it also
it.
makes it a lot easier to get out from under that too. If your clues cost 2 to crack, I mean, as a fellow person that's played Tivit quite a bit,
I was going to say this. I think I need to put this into Tivit because it's just being able to crack those for 1 is just so good.
Huge, right? Like, yeah, as a fellow Tivit pilot, paying 2 to sack, it's nothing worse than I vote for my 2 treasures and all my opponents vote for clue, and then the next player in turn order casts their Dockside. I'm like, sweet, I'll crack 2 treasures and 1 clue, draw 1 card. I still have minimum 2 artifacts that are both clues. Probably God only knows what else, and then it just feels terrible. Only costing 1 to sack, pretty good, pretty damn good.
It also, if you are in colors where you're doing anything with those food shenanigans that we may or may not be talking about later, foods normally cost 2 to sack as well. So them being 1 less,
3, I don't even know.
them being 1 less is better. Just anything that costs anything, and then I'm sure there's a billion artifact effects that are 2 that are now 1. So.
Oh, yeah. Yep, there's a ton. I mean, the big ones I've run into with this specific art, Basalt Monolith, obviously. I've seen it played and cloned, and then someone had a Grim Monolith that now only took 2 to untap and went infinite with that. I mean, it does a lot of infinite weird shenanigans.
I mean, makes your mana vault better too because you can just untap it for a little bit less, maybe use it more often. Yeah, I think it's going to be played in a lot of decks because blue and artifacts are kind of popular these days.
Yeah, and not to mention if you're in blue, how hard is it to tutor up? If you draw this, how hard is it to tutor up a Basalt Monolith? It's not hard in blue. Blue might not be the greatest tutor color, but it can sure as hell tutor some artifacts.
All right, what's the next one?
Up next, we have a card I am in absolute love with from this set, and that is, we can get in this debate, Archdruid's Charm or Archdruid's Charm. I say Archdruid. Sue me.
I say Arc, but
there you go. Triple green, instant. Choose 1. Search your library for a creature card or land card and reveal it. Put it onto the battlefield tapped if it's a land. Otherwise, put it into your hand and then shuffle. So that's mode 1. Mode 2 would be put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Can't be deflecting swatted back to your own creature. That's handy. And the third choice would be exile target artifact or enchantment. So at the floor is bye-bye One Ring, bye-bye Mystic Remora, bye-bye Rhystic Study, right? Like that's the bye-bye what's the stupid red one? Underworld Breach, right?
I would say the absolute floor is getting a land.
I mean, getting Gaia's Cradle in green decks is not the floor, friend.
Well,
I mean,
sure.
Maybe fights the floor.
I guess it's not a basic, so I guess that's fine. The middle clause is probably the one you use the least, but it is probably going to see some use. We've already explained we're fans of modal cards. This is obviously the next in the cycle that was the Arc Mages or Arc whatever the fuck. Triple blue counterspell that had modality. I never played that in a single deck because I never thought it was good enough, but Sure, I mean, I guess in casual maybe, or super mono blue, like you don't care. But in anything above mono blue, it just felt like too much. Triple green pips, I hate, but in green, if you're in mono green, that doesn't matter, which is probably where this sees the most play. If you're in two color green, you're probably still able to create the green for this to be relevant pretty early. It does have relevant text on it. I don't hate it, I just don't like it, and I don't see myself playing it, but I don't play mono green. I don't really play green much at all, because most of the time green is kind of shit. It's, in my opinion, the worst color, but which is funny because a couple years ago it was like the most powerful color and everybody loved it. But I don't
the most powerful
I don't play
color
it a lot.
in casual, but who knows? In competitive, it's definitely right now in the spectrum in the pendulum swing of things. It's probably on the lower end. I mean, overall, I think green has probably stronger card quality top to bottom than red, but red's got more powerful cards in general just because Dockside exists. So
yeah. I mean, it was always white was the worst, red was the second worst, green was the best, and blue and black were there in the middle. And then at some point it shifted to where I feel like white and red are both better than green. I love white. I feel like white is in a great spot. It has been for a couple of years because they just keep printing. You'll see we're going to talk about more white cards here, but they just keep printing shit that as a support color is very good. Like mono white is still kind of but when you're on like 3 or 4 color and white is your support, when you get all the silence effects and just the hate bears and other things that come with it, it's very powerful. So either way, this card is cool. Like I said, modality is great. I like having the options. I don't have a list right now that I would put it in, but I'm not playing a lot of green in comp. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like any mono green deck is going to love this because being able to get your Cradle instant speed to the battlefield or go tutor up your win con combo creature or being able to get rid of the the artifact or enchantment that's stopping you, your Torpor Orbs goating out of here,
I do like that it's exile and not destroy, which is nice because that does get the one ring and other things that are indestructible, but also just exiling stuff nobody's playing. Although green has that card, I don't remember what it's called at the moment, but the one creature that lets you shuffle a card from exile back into your library.
Oh yeah, Rift Sweeper or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Like that.
I think it's one of the only. There's a white card that does it too, but very rare that you can grab shit from exile. So exiling is good.
4-color colorless Karn lets you get back artifacts. I think.
Sure, that
artifacts
it's
are colorless. I don't remember one of those.
From out of the game or that you own in exile, which is better than the Wish cards because those are all just out of the game. But anyway,
yeah.
I think
this one being able to, for mono green, being able to kill a Drannith Magistrate to get their game plan going, being able to kill a Torpor Orb or the Cursed Totem that's just shutting off their game plan, or being able to, at floor, get a Cradle instant speed at end of turn or something. Card's pretty gross.
Or even just getting a creature into your hand isn't terrible. So
get your E-Witness or your Ashaya or whatever other bullshit combo you're going with. Exactly. So this card's nuts. I think this card brings mono green back up quite a bit.
Next up, Trouble in Pairs, another white card.
Another white card. How about that? 2 white and 2 enchantment. If an opponent, Jesus, what a wall of text. If an opponent would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. So get wrecked, you Final Fortune players. Whenever an opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures, draws their second card each turn, or casts their second spell each turn, you draw a card.
So yeah, wall of text for sure. 4 mana. Most people don't like it, but as we've said, 4 mana really isn't that hard to get anymore. Even if you're in mono white, I feel like you can get this because you just need 2 lands or a talisman or something that makes colors or Chromox, Mox Diamond, whatever, and then a Soul Ring or a Crypt, and you've got this. This is easy to cast on turn 2 most games. And if you do cast this on turn 2, you've now got... Well, so the first line of text doesn't really fucking matter. I mean, yes, get wrecked Final Fortune players, but what's the chances that you actually stop that? Also, extra turn combos, very rare these days, so it's just it's like Stranglehold. It's got that clause. Nobody gives a shit. Stranglehold is good because it stops people from tutoring. This is good because it's got that sort of catch-up mechanic that every other color's been getting, except for white, outside of, a few things, but mostly it's like, search for a basic planes, or make a 1/1 soldier. Like, who gives a shit? In this case, it's draw cards, and it's draw cards off of very common actions. 2 creatures attack. Easy, draw card. 2 spells are cast. Hey, it's Crom, draw card. What was the last one? Two.
Or draws 2 cards.
Yeah, draws 2 cards. Yeah, that's going to happen a lot because they have Ristics, or they have Espers, or they have this or that. Is it only opponents, or is it anyone?
An opponent.
Okay, so
any opponent,
you can't get it off your own Espers, but yeah, I think even in mono white, this is good. I see this as being good in white or 2-color white decks. I think when you get to 3 colors, you probably aren't playing this, but I'm considering it in my Sithis list because it's an enchantment, so I get the card draw off of the cast, and then also just have it sit there to draw me more cards later. Crom is a good card for a reason, and this is literally Crom on an enchantment for 1 less mana. So why wouldn't you play it? Yeah, obviously it's not a 4/4 that flies, but nobody's going to blow this up either, and they may not attack you, although I guess... do they have to attack you, or is it just 2?
It's whenever an opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures. So
this kind of has the pseudo ghostly prison effect, where maybe they don't attack you because they don't want you to draw a card. Yeah, so you got a little bit of protection. You're also drawing cards off the shit that they're just doing to do. Seems good. And normally in white, this would be like, those things happen and you create a fucking token that's a creature, or you create a treasure.
An artifact soldier that feeds the dark side. Yeah.
Right. You create other bullshit you don't want. And in this case, it's all card draw. So this is better than that. Like I said, there was that one creature, I don't remember the name of it. It was a few years back. It was like a 4-mana 2/2 or something that drew or made you a 1/1 if people had more creatures than you, and got you a plains if they had more lands than you, but it was all at end step, and just it was fine, but it was never going to be powerful. This is just pure card draw off of people taking game actions. I think it's really good.
If you think about it, just by exactly what you said, this is a 4-mana Crom in white. It doesn't deal 4 damage because it doesn't fly and attack. Sure, I get that. It doesn't block. Sure, great. But it costs 4 mana, and it's going to draw you the same number of cards. When an opponent casts 2 spells, you draw a card. Also, if they draw 2 cards because they have a Crom in play or an Esper Sentinel or whatever, you draw 2 cards. And like you said, they are probably not going to attack you with 2 creatures. They're probably going to attack you with 1 creature or no creatures because they don't want you drawing more cards. If your opponent's getting into a counter war with this in play, the number of cards you're going to draw is just disgusting. I think this card... if anything, over the last year that I've learned through new cards come out, how powerful Talion is as a 4-mana draw engine. Sure, it deals 2 damage. That's super relevant.
It's also the Fairy Mastermind, the Ledger Shredder, Bowmasters, all of these cards that have this payoff of 2 things happen in a turn, you do a thing. All of those cards have proven to be very good.
Yep, so I don't see.
And this is White's version, but they're all smashed together. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think this card's gonna be nuts. I mean, if Talion at 4, which is a great card, I play it in tournaments. I play it as my commander in tournaments. I love the card. I love the deck. If it's proven to me that it's hard to play around things that are gonna just happen, this is hard to play around. Your opponents are gonna cast 2 spells a turn. I mean, in a turn cycle alone, this could draw you 6 cards. I mean, how stupid is that? They draw 2 cards, they cast 2 spells, you're drawing 2. Go on. You draw 6 cards in a turn cycle. At a floor, you're probably drawing, 4 cards in a turn cycle, 3 cards minimum, I'm betting, because your opponents are probably going to cast 2 spells. And if they don't, if they're like, I'm going to hold back because this is kind of like a pseudo-heuristic study. I don't want to feed the, whatever the hell this card's called. I don't want to feed the trouble in pairs. I'm only going to cast 1 spell. Well, fuck, that's great. If you're winning the tempo battle because of the threat of this, huge. That's huge. So I don't know. I hated this card when I first read it just because I'm conditioned. It's that brain conditioning of what new nerfed piece of shit white card are they printing that's going to be a poor attempt to do whatever. But then mono white Crom. Shit, this is probably pretty good.
The last one that was most similar to this was the Smuggler something, and it didn't. I don't think it drew you cards that made you. It got you a land drop, or it made you a treasure, or did something, and it's kind of it goes back to Smothering Tithe. Smothering Tithe is a great card, in conjunction with Wheels and other things where you can get a fuck ton of treasures, but we always looked at it why couldn't this just draw us cards? I don't want the treasures. I want the card draw.
Yeah, I want the card draw, and I want it now. Smother Share, I just looked it up. It was a 3-mana one. At the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent, blah, 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 blah. That's too late to be relevant. This can help you win a fight on the stack.
Right.
Much better.
It can draw you into, like, they're having a counter war. You draw a couple cards, you get the silence, and then you just stop everything from fucking happening by casting the silence.
Yep.
That seems,
this card's
or you
great.
get the swords and you swords the problem. So this could draw you into something during. It can make white or Boros or Selesnya or Azorius or whatever lower color combination that you. Because honestly, when you get into even in Azorius, maybe you don't play this because you've got your Ristic and your Mystic, but the other 2-card combo or color combinations that are white without as much significant card draw, this probably gets played. But just being able to combat stuff on the stack makes a big difference. And white's not notorious for having a lot of answers on the stack, but they do have them. And sometimes drawing, I mean, shit, we've had, how many games have we had on stream where somebody drew the right card at the right time because, well, fuck it, I'm not gonna pay for your Ristic or your Mystic or whatever, and they're like, cool, I drew the misstep, here you go, you lose.
For sure. I mean, I could see this card being nuts in, like, what's that, blue-white Heliod that flips?
Yeah. I mean, that's another deck where, like, Smothering Tide is good too because you're wheeling and making a bunch of treasures.
And I think it gets back enchantments from grave and stuff. So this card, I think this one will start to play. When I first read it again, I was looking at it through those, rose-colored glasses of white card advantage probably suck. The more we talk about it, the more I read it. I'm like, why am I not playing this in more decks? So
I think it's gonna be a good card. All right, we got a couple left for this set. Next up is a Born Upon the Wind impersonator.
I love this card. Final Word Phantom. 1 blue and 2 colorless for a 1/4 flash flying spirit detective. And during each opponent's end step, you may cast spells as though they had flash.
So it's a weird clause. It having flash makes it kind of cool. So the comparison I made was to Born Upon a Wind, which came out Lord of the Rings. It was 2 mana, 3 mana, 3. I think
2 mana, blue and 1.
Mana. All right. So, and it basically just says, suppose you have flash. Boom. Okay. So you cast it at somebody's end step, and you just, or during the middle of a counter war, or whenever you feel is the go time. It's kind of like Emergent Zone 2. Emergent Zone is the same thing. It's a land. You sack it. You can cast your shit for free or with flash. So that was kind of the one way to do it for a while. And then Born Upon the Wind came along, and it's kind of usurped Emergent Zone because it's a colorless land, and who wants that? Either way, you cast this, couple mana. You can now cast anything in your hand for free or at flash speed. So you can do it in the middle of a counter. Everybody exhausted all their resources. Now you're like, here's my time to go. Bam, Born Upon the Wind. Bam, Ad Nos. Bam, do all the things. Win the game. This is the same idea, but it's stapled onto a creature. And it only allows you to do the flash thing on someone's end step. So it is essentially what I just described, where you would use Born Upon the Wind on somebody's end step or during a counterspell battle. You can still flash this in, but you only can do it at the end step. You can't do it during the battle. So a little less good. It does cost 1 more mana, but it is a body, and it also allows you to try again later, which is, I guess, a little bit advantageous over the Born. Because here you try and flash it in at the opponent before your end step. You do your thing. Maybe you add Nas. Maybe you do whatever. You've set yourself up. You sculpt your hand. You go to your turn. You win. Cool. That's what you wanted to do. That's great. But say you get stopped. Well, maybe you have enough resources anyway to where it goes to the next guy's end step and you try again. So it's got like repeatability in that sense. But I still think that the number one way this is going to be used is just flash it on somebody's end step and win the game.
Yep,
you could also do it on like your turn, your seat 3, and seat above you is tapped out. This guy does his turn, he taps out, and this guy was already tapped out, and you're like, okay, shields down, do it on this guy's end step. So you can strategically plan when to take off with it. And because it's flash speed, you can flash it in whenever you want. Or, you can flash it in on this guy's end step, then go to your turn, then do your turn, and then wait for the next guy's end step, and then be set up to win. Like, there's a lot of different ways that it can go.
Yep, I like this played out kind of as you said, as the static ability. Jam this damn thing onto the battlefield as early as possible, and then during your turn, you don't have to do much. You play a land, you pass. You
also, you don't have to win. doesn't matter. End of the day, you can play a Drago deck with this in your hand or in your pocket because you can just play it out and have the ability to play everything you want on other people's end steps.
Yep. I mean, the first kind of commander that I thought of being Italian player, I was like, maybe this would be something I try in Italian because I like to try and play the super, not control, but you are playing like strategic control. You're countering the right thing at the right time. But then I can, interaction, and then at the end of turn, if they didn't do anything I needed to interact with, I can tap out and cast my Shieldred for 4 mana, then untap. Not have to do it on my turn and leave with no mana open to try and stop the next person in line's win con, etc. Nimrus was a big one I was thinking about trying this in because cast Nimrus, then on an opponent's turn, jam this into play and do the Nimrus mini draw 2, whatever it is, look at the top 2, put 1 in hand kind of thing.
Well, that Nimrus already, I guess with the flash makes a difference. I was going to say, because Nimrus already had the clause, you could do stuff on other people's turns, and that's when you get the card selection or whatever, but I can't remember if it's instants and sorceries only, or...
No, it's just whenever you cast the first spell on an opponent's turn, you...
Oh, yeah, so having flash, you can just be like...
Top 2 cards, 1 in hand, 1 in grave, I think. So this would not only have flash, so you could cast it with the Nimrus in play and do the whole draw 2, or look at the top 2, draw 1, but it also lets you flash your mana rocks into your opponent's end steps and Nimrus, etc. So it's pretty cute in that one.
Flash in a Soul Ring.
And then I saw the deck today that I'm excited as hell to build and try this in. I don't know where the tournament was located, but it was a tournament that somebody played this in their we just talked about it earlier, Cadena.
Yeah, the morph commander.
They played it in that, and that seems just busted good, where you can morph a creature for free on all of your opponent's end steps, draw a card because of this thing. Sick.
So I don't know if they've errated Cadena at all to consider any of these other things, and honestly, they probably should, because there's morph, manifest, cloak, disguise, blah blah blah. So like, it would be nice if you could get the card draw on all of those. Because
actually, I just looked up. It says the first face down creature spell you cast each turn costs 3 less to cast. So all that.
So you can use all of them. Yeah, that actually probably would make Cadena pretty decent. Sultai's already not bad. Being able to shove that much shit onto the battlefield in a turn cycle and then just go to your turn and be like, attack with these, leave all your mana up, flip all of them, and do crazy shit, and then maybe leave up more mana again, pass, and then still continue to do that as you go, constantly refilling your hand. There may be a critical mass enough for that to be a really strong engine.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. I'm going to put it together and see what I think. What the hell? Who doesn't like some weird new shit, right?
I mean, I will say that I do not like that they added literally 2 different versions of the same mechanic in the same set when they could have just left it at 1. But here we are. We got a couple left. Let's bust these out real quick.
You got it. These next 2 are maybe less exciting, maybe super exciting, depending on your take. Crime Novelist, 1 red, 2 colorless, Goblin Bard. It's a 1/3. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add 1 red mana to your mana pool.
Seems on paper not great, but the community at large has already figured out that there's a 1 mana artifact. It's Inspector's Foundry or something like that. It says whenever you sack an artifact or something to that effect, pay 1, make a 1/1 servo. So you essentially are doing the thing that the novelist wants you to do. It's making you the mana to pay to make the thing, and it's the thing that you're sacking, essentially. So you would need to do this prior. Like, you would have to sack a different artifact to make the servo. But then you now have the ability to make the mana to make the servo, and then sack the servo and make a loop. Then you just need a payoff, which is either Impact Tremors or, if you're in black, Disciple of the Vault, or if you're in, again, with black Rakdos, you can do Mayhem Devil, etc. This can create a loop where you kill the table.
Animation
that alone
is the artifact. It's
okay, yeah.
Yep, and it's 1 color.
I think the Foundry that I was talking about also has like a 1 mana make a fucking servo, but I don't know that matters. Either way.
Either
I can't remember.
This plus animation module, if you have, what was the like Goblin Bombardment, for instance, would you sack the
that,
servo,
or Impact Tremors works too, because the server comes in and does the thing.
You do some weird shit with it. So this one, very limited in mono red, but hey, it's combo. And even if you're just on dockside doing some dockside shenanigans, sacking all your treasures, this gets +1/+1 counters that are permanent, add a bunch of red mana. I mean, all your treasures now tap for 2 red essentially because of this, which is
I like it in Rakdos personally because then you have access to Mayhem Devil, which just makes every sack do damage. And then you also have access to the bombardment, the impact tremors, do. And you can also have Disciple of the Vault, so every time you kill one of those artifacts, it does a damage.
yeah,
Either
plus being
way,
a
the two
goblin,
cards,
super easy to tutor.
yeah, Goblin Matron, Goblin Recruiter, all your Black Tutors, your Gamble, any of those things can tutor for this and or the other pieces. So yeah, easy to assemble new Rakdos combo that also includes a goblin. So if you have a goblin deck or a deck that has enough goblins for you to be running recruiter or matron, if you're doing snoop combos, that kind of thing, this is another redundancy that can be slammed in the list, and you're probably already running cards that synergize. So I think it's pretty cool. It's not like it's not something to really get super excited about, but just having another way to do some sort of game ending combo is always good, and it's unique. I like being able to play stuff like this in lieu of just doing another dockside list or another adnos list or another the same things over and over. Having more options is cool. Last one, Soul Innervation.
Ah, there it is. Soul Innervation. Yep. 1 black and 3. It's an enchantment. It has flash. When Soul Innervation enters the battlefield, target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. Whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. The first commander that I thought of for this card where it could maybe see some play would be in the old black-green Gitrog monster. It's another way to kill Dothy Voidwalker, which is one of the banes of that deck's existence. And if you start doing your Gitrog ridiculous shenanigan loops with your shuffle titans every time you shuffle your graveyard in your library, this will trigger killing your opponents if you do the loop. So,
and that's an infinite loop most of regardless. So yeah, that will do the thing. I initially skipped over this, but when you pointed it out, I was like, okay, yeah. I like the fact that it sucks that it's 4 mana, but again, 4 mana isn't that hard to come by. And if you know that you're sitting on win or have the ability to do it, you've prepped for this. This is in your hand. You're ready to go. It removing something like a Drannith so that now you can do food chain stuff or any other hate bear, rule of law, creature or something, or whatever, Archon, etc.
so
stuff that's going to stop you.
Going to kill most.
It kills mostly everything that's going to be stopping you. But then having that little ability to do Reanimator loops, the first thing I thought of was Gravecrawler loops, because Gravecrawler with Phyrexian Altar, you just need a payoff. Usually that's going to be your Blood Artist, etc., those types of effects. If you're already doing Reanimator stuff, a lot of times this is how you win games. But with Gravecrawler, you need another zombie. There is a white-black zombie that does the same thing. When a creature dies, it drains the table for 1 and you gain 1. So you could have that zombie out with Gravecrawler, sack it to the altar. That makes you the mana to then recast it from the grave because you control a zombie, and rinse and repeat, and you're getting the damage off of this enchantment. Every time the Gravecrawler comes out, it does the damage to the table. You also have your thing that's doing the damage to the table. So you actually don't even need that other piece. Gravecrawler, you just requires another zombie, so you need another zombie. If it's not Gravecrawler, there are other cards that do allow you to cast from the grave, etc. So anything that's doing Reanimator shenanigans that can do it over and over again, this kills the table. So, and it also removes a threat at the same time.
Yep, it's got flash. If it didn't have flash, I wouldn't even bat an eyelash and look at this card. Having flash, 4 mana for a -4/-4 isn't the worst rate of removal. It's not great, but it's not the worst. Being an enchantment, being harder to counter, it doesn't get stopped by Dispel, by Miscast. It's a little nice there. I mean, there's still Flusterstorm won't touch this, etc. So being an enchantment, being a little harder to counter is kind of nice. So
it does die to Swan Songs and whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's also innocuous enough to where like people see that and they're just like, okay, you paid 4 mana for a neg 4, you killed my Crom, whatever, I don't have an answer. They let it go, and then you're like, okay, now I proceed to do this loop, and they're like, oh, I didn't even see that coming, because like I didn't see that coming when I looked at the card. So it is one of those things. It's kind of a replacement outlet for an Impact Tremors or something else too. So I don't know that it's going to see play in a ton of lists, but I think this is something that helps out like Orzhov in particular, if you're doing like Relic Warder stuff or that sort of thing. And then, like I said, Gravecrawler is another option. There are plenty of zombies that are halfway decent. I don't remember. I don't think Ratadravic's a zombie. If he is, then that works. If not, there's also other zombies in the colors that get played. So, and it's in black. So, like, you could be playing guys in Geralf or Scarab God or the white one or Esper one. I can't remember her name, but she came in a precon. Was also zombie focused. So,
Radadravic is a zombie.
and there you go. This slots right into Radadravic. Throw in a Gravecrawler and you're done.
It's instead of the go wide meat hook massacre, it's the single target kind of thing.
But it does
kind of thing for those.
It does the trick though. So
yeah, exactly. I like it. I'm gonna try it. It might not be good, but I'm gonna try it in a few decks and see what I think. Just as we go more and more to a mid range meta, I don't mind playing a little bit of extra removal, even if it's just singular removal, because
this is removal that stays on the board and actually gives you another effect later too. And if you're in colors that are already, even if it only does 3-4 damage over the course of a game, you got your removal. It's fine. I don't see a problem with it. It's not going to be in your 5-color list for sure, but lower color decks where you might need the extra outlet, that's fine. So that wraps up basically what we wanted to do with murders, and that took longer than I expected, but we don't have a ton to talk about with Fallout either, so jumping into our little review for the Fallout precons. Again, big fan of the IP, was super hyped for this to come out. Had to explain some of the cards to Kirk, and now they make more sense to him because he's not a gamer. One of those things where I was very excited, but mostly underwhelmed with a lot of what came with it. I will say a big boon to the set is there are a fuck ton of really good reprints. Cards that see play in a variety of formats. Very good cards, obviously with new artwork too, which is cool. I like that. But not a lot of unique cards that I'm like, oh my god, this is fucking amazing. There's like a couple where we're really high on them, and the rest of it's kind of meh. And that's kind of how we felt about the murder set. So, any other preface before we jump into the list there, Kirk?
No, I mean, I just again, I think having no affinity to the game before looking at these cards, I was like similarly underwhelmed with a lot of it. There's some very neat cards, but just underwhelmed as far as a CEDH set. I'll go with that.
From a lore perspective, I think they did a good job with some of the treatments. A lot of the cards the art looks spot on with what the stuff in the game. They made references to a lot of the quote unquote pop culture of the universe. Like, it's a really cool, flavorful set. It's just not busted enough for me to be like, there's just all these super powerful cards. Like, and that's magic. It ebbs and flows. We get several sets in a row where it's like, holy shit, they're just power creeping the fuck out of everything, and then we get several sets where we're just like, and that's the end of it. So anyway,
I'm not super mad about not having to tweak
a billion lists
either. Yeah, so I'm good with it. Yeah,
I feel you. You can't have good stuff. My biggest disappointment, I think, was that there wasn't a lot. There weren't commons really. Like, so there wasn't even like popper shit to look at. The commons that were there were reprints, so nothing new. There were some uncommon, commander options, which I did build one of them. It's actually the first card we're going to talk about. I built it now in popper and CEDH, but yeah, it's Raoul, the troubleshooter.
It's, what is it? A black, blue, and a colorless. So he's Demir. Legendary creature. It's a zombie mutant rogue. So at least 2 relevant creature types there in zombie and rogue.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 1/4, so it's pretty beefy boy. It doesn't die to bolt. And once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from among cards in your graveyard that were milled this turn. And it has an activated ability of tap it. Each player mills a card, which mill is a keyword. It means specifically they each put a card from the top of their library into their graveyard. Cards that let you look at the top cards of your library and choose to put those in your grave, or entomb a card from your library to your grave. From my understanding, that is not mill. Mill is strictly...
That's an interesting point that you brought up that I didn't realize when I first brewed him. So I initially brewed him as a competitive Pauper commander because he's uncommon, so he's legal for that format, and then you have to just run commons in the 99. Dimir has some okay combos. There is a combo in the list. It's I can't remember. It's Undercity Scrounger, I believe it is. It's a tapper or a black card. You tap it, it makes a treasure, and then you attach Freed to the reel from it, and then use the treasure to untap it, so you can make infinite tap and untaps. And then Disciple of the Vault, also a common. Every time you sack the treasure to untap the guy, it does a damage to something, and you do that. Rinse, repeat, kill the table. That is the combo that I got to. Well, with Pauper, we don't have any of the good tutors. The only tutors we have, actually, Dimir has probably the best tutor suite because of Transmute. So there's Muddle the Mixture, there's Perplex, there's Dimir House Guard, there's Brain Spoil, there's like almost 10 of them. Probably 6 or 7. Anyway, it's enough to where you can usually get the CMCs you need on those Transmute spells to actually go and get the full combo. I think the only one I can't tutor is the... no, I can, because Dizzy Spell. Dizzy Spell will get the 1-drop. And I have 2 different Transmutes that will get the Freed from a Reel and the other guy. So I can actually tutor the whole combo up, but it's probably not going to happen. My thought process was... I am running some of the cards that say, look at like the top 5, put one in your hand, put the rest in your grave, but those cards can't be used with the commander. So you're still going to be able to dig a little bit, and you need to. I'm still running reanimation stuff, so there are a lot of return creature cards from grave to hand, that sort of thing, so you can get those pieces back if you need them. But then there's also, I put in like a lot of the untappers, like one we talked about, or potentially we talked about from the other set was as a potential. It was another blue untap target permanent. We didn't put it on. We didn't put it on the list, but it's another one of those effects. There's several of those that are commons that can untap our commander, so you can potentially mill 3-4 times in a turn if you had enough of them out. Milling your opponents is usually okay in Pauper outside of anyone else who's also doing graveyard shenanigans. You may be helping them out, so that is the issue. But it's the same issue in comp, too, because people could be running Reanimate, Animate Dead, yada yada. You put a Gorger in their grave, and then they go, oh, thanks, Animate, cool.
Or you're feeding their Underworld Breach. They're loving you for that.
So it's an interesting card. I went certain ways in building it in Pauper, and then we had talked about doing the stream that we have upcoming with doing the precons, and the actual precon that I picked to play has him in the 99, so I was like, well, let's just build him as a CEDH deck. And now it's kind of... It got rid of the combo that I'm doing in Pauper. I had it in there initially, but Kirk talked me out of it because there's just better stuff in CEDH. But generally, it's an Isorev combo, because he just mills everybody. You pass the turn, they draw for an empty library, and they die. Unless they have Shufflers, which not super common, but does exist. To get around that, you would need to be able to remove their graveyard while it was still there.
So you'd have to have like a Doctor Voidwalker in play or something. But you don't need to do any of that because you also mill your own entire library. And if you've done the ISO Rev combo, you probably have 2 blue mana available. So you just cast your Thassa's Oracle you milled.
Right. And that's the point, is that it can just do that. If for some reason your Thassa's got exiled, then you have to rely on just hoping that they draw out of an empty library, or, other various ways. We came up with a few different combos. Generally speaking, it's not the most powerful commander, but it is, again, the floor is its Dimir. It has an easy game-winning combo. I've even considered putting in Labman, and there's this other card. I would have to look really quick. It was...
Is that Combat Courier? Is that right?
Yeah. This is something I saw somebody else mention. It might have been the Mind Sculptors. But just having the Labman as an additional... backup in case Thassa's is gone, and then using Combat Career, which is a 1-drop 1/1 artifact. You pay 2, sack it, draw a card. It also has Unearth for a blue, so you can bring it out of your grave to then do this to draw a card, to then win with the Labman on the field. So you could essentially mill your whole library, then use Raoul to cast Labman from your grave, then unearth the Combat Career to then sack it to draw a card to win. So it's a backup line. Yeah, this works, but I haven't found cuts because like we looked over this last night for like an hour, and it seems pretty right and tight, but like it's a thing. I've also been considering Yawgmoth's Will to be able to do additional casts from grave if we mill mostly everything, but like get stopped or whatever, and there's stuff in the grave that maybe we want to play. You could still do Thassa's consult from grave with that, so. I don't know. It's in an okay spot, and we'll see what happens. You guys can watch the stream this upcoming Tuesday and see what happens. But yeah, one of the, in my opinion, one of the better commanders from the set. But Kirk will probably argue that this next one's even better.
Yeah, I think that's a hill I'm prepared to die on. It is the Master Transcendent. It is 1 black, green, and blue, so Sultai. It's a 2/4 mutant, so there you go. It's twice the power. It's got to be twice as good. It's a legendary artifact creature, mutant creature type. So it's an artifact and a mutant. Artifact, good and bad. When the Master Transcendent enters the battlefield, target player gets 2 rad counters. We haven't talked about rad counters, so this would probably be a good segue into that really quick, and I'm going to tutor him up because otherwise I'll get it wrong. Perfect. Never not had it. So you when it enters the battlefield, target player gets 2 rad counters, and those rad counters short for radiation.
So for a little bit of context, in the game, you actually have a monitor on your Pip-Boy, which is like this kind of smartphone-ish kind of wrist thing that has like, it's basically your menu to see your map and your other things, but it does actually have a thing on there and shows rads, because as you get more radiation, because certain spots in the world will have more radiation than others, usually denoted by like green sludge and shit around, but like, you know, you may or may not know, but your thing has like a Geiger counter on it, so you hear the sound, and when you are in a spot where you start gaining them, if you gain too many, you will die. And there are particular things you can use in the game to get rid of that, so that's why they're rads, because they just shortened it to rads on the Pip-Boy.
Short from radiation, which is probably what that artwork is on the token I'm looking at. So
yeah. So what is radiation or rad counters?
They are at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. If you have any rad counters, mill that many cards. For each non-land card milled this way, you lose 1 life and a rad counter.
So if you're given 1, then you mill 1, and if it's a non-land, you lose it. But you lose
it and 1 life.
Yep. 1 life.
And this one gives 2 rad counters. Yep. And so his other ability, tap it, put target creature card in a graveyard that was milled this turn onto the battlefield under your control. It's a green mutant with base power and toughness 3/3. It loses its colors and creature types.
Yeah, that's not bad either. Because I didn't even think about that. Just because you can steal, they mill a dockside, you steal it.
Hell yeah. And it gets around timing restrictions. It just has to have been milled this turn.
Right. That's pretty good.
So they go to reanimate their, Hull Breaker horror bullshit. Boom. That's mine now. If you've milled it this turn. So the reason this one is busted in half is because obviously it's a food chain commander. We all know the Sultai Ukima Kazur food chain deck of old that I still love and still play. This is another fill for that kind of a deck because you can create infinite rad counters for all of your opponents, and then presumably when they go to their first pre-combat main phase, they'll mill their entire library, hopefully die from all the damage they'll take from milling their non-land cards. If they don't happen to die for any reason, they have an empty library that during their next turn, hopefully they'll lose from.
So just for an example, when would you think you would go off on food chain, like on average, like turn 4, 5?
I mean, yeah, in theory, absolutely.
So
because
just rule of averages, like not to say that that's actually accurate, because I know you haven't played. I haven't played it. Nobody's played it. I was just thinking, okay, so like if it's on average turn 5, most people have seen their first 7, plus they drew 5 cards, plus maybe any other card draw. Let's say average of 7 more. So like 22 cards roughly. So they have now what, minus the commander, like
76, 77-ish cards left in library.
And even if half of those, so half of that is what, God, like 43 or something.
30,
Not even
38
30.
yeah, 76.
So 38 times 2, more than 40. It's almost guaranteed to kill everyone.
Most likely.
Statistically.
Unless you're playing Joey's Lord Windgrace deck, which is all lands. But at that point, he's dead anyway because he's got nothing to do. So
right. And if by chance you don't kill them, when they get to their turn, they have to draw from an empty library. So you kill them effectively. It's the same problem with Raoul. Like, you either killed them because you did the thing, or you just hope that they don't have a shuffler and they draw from an empty library. Same problem.
Yep. And
just different
with
way.
This one, you also have the opportunity, if you do mill all your opponents, to, if your master has the ability to tap because it's not summoning sick, maybe you snatch their Dockside or snatch their Thassa's Oracle as it's...
Or their Elish Norn and just kill everything that's on the board and kill them anyway.
There you go. Yeah, it can do anything. So, I mean, and plus, when you cast this, somebody gets 2 rad counters, they mill 2 cards. Who knows? Maybe you get lucky and you mill something good right there. You mill Italian or whatever.
Grand Abolishur, a Dothy.
Yeah.
Could be anything. Exactly. Could be a boat.
Could be anything. Exactly. So not only is this a possible ISO Rev commander, because again, it does... well, I guess it's not really a good ISO Rev commander. I take that back.
It's definitely better food chain. But you could also... You could also be... I mean, you're in the colors to do Thoracle lines. You're in the colors where you get all the good tutors, all the good counters. So I mean, it's got a good base. Sultai is not terrible. Again, we're not super high on green as much as we used to be, but it still provides a lot of ramp. It does provide your creature tutors to get your pieces for your food chain. It provides this green. I don't think green has any enchantment tutors, but you got black, so you can get them that way. Either way, you can tutor up all your win pieces. And then you can steal stuff like the abolishers and things to protect yourself.
Yep. A really gross thing about this, it's a 4-drop, and you're in green, black, and blue. So you've got Eldritch Evolution. You could, spin this into a 6-drop. You could spin this into a 5-drop with Neoform.
Yeah.
Or you could transmute artifact this into like a 6-drop, like a Bolas' Citadel or something stupid like that, because it's an artifact.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, all those choices are probably worse than just doing food chain, but
for sure,
it's not like the worst. You could also fucking play Thrasios in the list. You can play Kinnan in the list. You can do Basalt Monolith bullshit. You could also, then it's already a 4-drop, so I guess you can't spin it into a what's the Seedborn? Seedborn's 5-drop, isn't it?
Seedborn's a 5, so yeah, you
can Neoform it into a Seedborn, and now you got Thrasios, and you just do your bullshit.
Birthing Potted, you can do all sorts of shit with this. Yeah, it's got a lot of different ways you could build this. You could self mill with this too. I mean, you could give yourself 2 rad counters, and then top deck tutor with a worldly tutor because you're in green, or Sylvan tutor, whatever the hell you want to reanimate, and then go to your turn, mill those 2 cards, and then fucking tap it and reanimate it.
You could also ISO Rev not for it, but just for infinite mana, and then do the Radstorm thing that we talked about. We were going to put that on this list, but we didn't. But that could be the thing where you just storm and make infinite rad counters that way on everybody. That's another... this is actually probably the list where you'd want that, honestly.
That could be, but I mean, also just think about Vamp tutoring up or Worldly tutoring up a Hullbreaker Horde at the top of your library. No, because when does this mill? Beginning of your pre-combat main phase, so it'd have to be on second from the top, right? Because you would draw.
Depends on the amount of counters you had, but
yeah, it's a weird one. There's got to be a way to do it.
I'm sure you could probably make this a polymorph list too if you really wanted to.
Yeah, Sensei's Top is a card, right? I mean, who knows?
And you play Sensei's Top with that Gadgeteer and,
well, shit, if you're able to transmute this into a Bolas' Citadel, I don't see why you wouldn't play Sensei's Top too if you're going that route. So it's got a lot of different options. Food chain being obviously
and also
probably
do Adnos, Necro, Peer. You can do all the things. You can do Razaketh bullshit, like anything you want really in these colors. You don't have Breach, but whatever.
I mean, you could brain freeze your entire library and then cast something with this for free too. So yeah, I don't know. It's all sorts. Hell, if your opponent goes to brain freeze with their bullshit and they have a bunch of brain freeze triggers on the stack, those triggers each resolve one at a time, right? It's mill 3, mill 3, mill 3, mill 3. So maybe you steal their Dockside in the middle of their bullshit or something, so they can't cast it with their breach and go ham.
That's true. Yeah.
It's got options. I think this card's nuts. It's 3 colors, it's got green, and it's a food chain outlet. What more do you need, right? And it's in the best color for food chain because you've got blacks. You can just cast Tainted Pact, or you can cast Demonic Consultation. And if you're casting Demonic Consultation, you just name food chain. If you're casting Tainted Pact, you just flip till you find food chain. And hopefully you exile Mist Hollow Griffin or the whatever the hell the 3-drop Eldrazi.
Eldrazi,
right?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name right now.
So same thing you could do with Ukima Kazur. So this one's it's like Ukima Kazur with a better commander in the command zone. Yeah.
I don't hate it. I don't really like it either, but that's just because I'm not super high on food chain anymore. Like I did do the Discana thing we talked about earlier, but it's just proven to be kind of fragile. So a lot of times I don't do it. But
I think Atrax have brought food chain back to a prominent spot. So we'll see. I don't know. This one I might brew, and I'll probably brew this as my second deck, and we'll see what happens because I might play. I haven't decided if I'm going to play my dumb shit deck or not. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like this card. I think it's good. There was a Doctor Who pairing that also was you could do Soul Tie with food chain that might be better than this also, but I don't know. I think this card's cool.
I mean, food chain it wins games. You know, it is what it is. It can be fragile, but like most of the CDH win cons are fragile. You just either you get there or you don't. You prep and get the protection first, or you don't. It's just kind of how it is. From here, we've got a couple other like sort of honorable mention type commanders that they seem like they could be good, but maybe aren't the greatest. This first one is literally just an ISO Rev commander, and that's the only thing it has going for it. And I don't even like it, but I felt like it needed mention just because it can do that. It's Red Death, the Shipwrecker.
Yep. Blue and a red for a 1/3 crab mutant, legendary crab mutant. And it says it's got alluring eyes. Tap it, goad target creature an opponent controls. That player draws a card, you add a red mana to your mana.
So, seems bad because you're drawing people cards and you're making mana. The thing that I was saying earlier is like, okay, yes, ISO Rev, you literally can just draw everyone out, which is cool. But like, if at any point they draw an instant speed removal spell, they just kill this guy and you're done, and you got to wait and try again later. But again, fragility of CDH combos. That's just the way. That's the world we live in, and that's what you have to do. One thing too, though, is if like say that happens, but it's kind of late in it. Like maybe you've already killed one guy, and it's like the second guy you're milling out that like gets the swords and swords is this guy. You've got a fuck ton of red mana floating. Maybe you've got a fireball in your hand. I would build it that way, where you have X red burn spells in your deck, because maybe you get stopped and now you have enough mana to just kill everybody anyway. But otherwise, I don't know that it's really good. It's just it was interesting.
Though I don't think you can interrupt it because it's tap : so you would tap it, activate it, the goad target creature ability with that on the stack, activate dramatic reversal, untap everything, tap it again, wash, rinse, repeat. So I don't even think you can.
So yeah, they would cast the swords and you would just be like, okay, I respond by blah blah blah. And it would just resolve at the end. Well, so maybe you still can't.
I don't even think you give them a chance. I think you put 100,000 go target creature and opponent controlled triggers on the stack and then pass priority. So I think you're good.
Sure. Okay. So I guess corrected. I stand corrected. It just wins the game with ISO Rev.
We did it. We broke ISO Rev.
Yeah, we did it again with different colors. Is it so you know?
Different color. I'm sick of Dimir. Fucking, it seems like Azuri. Dimir seems like they're the ISO Rev love child. So it's nice to see it here. And is it so?
It is a different color pair. I mean, you can still do Breach Brain Freeze stuff with LED. So you have that. You don't have Savines, or you can Intuition, but you don't have Savines to make that a guarantee. So that's not as good. Otherwise,
2 mana creature, so you can turn your Mox Amber on and your Deflecting Swat and your Fierce Guardianship on pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, there's some benefits there. I don't think it's the worst thing you could be doing, but it's definitely not the best. I only mentioned it because it's technically viable, just because it is an outlet in the command zone for a known combo, and here we are.
If Rev wasn't playing the Mothman, I'd bet dollars to the dawn this would be the son of a bitch he'd build. Anyway,
I wouldn't doubt it. Next up is Rex the Cyberhound, which is an interesting card that includes the energy mechanic, which short history lesson. Kaladesh introduced energy into standard, and people broke it, and they banned cards, and then it wasn't really breakable in Commander, so it just kind of sat there and did nothing. All those cards just kind of never got used. And then I don't know if it was, I don't remember where exactly, but within the last year, they've printed a couple energy cards here and there. And then now this, and rumor has it, Modern Horizons 3, which I think comes out this year, maybe, is supposed to have more energy cards printed. So, grain of salt, this may be better than it is. And a lot of the cards in this set had energy that I ignored because energy is just not a thing. But maybe given another set's worth of cards with more options, maybe energy becomes a thing. But read this card off for us.
Yep, it is Rex Cyberhound. 1 white, 1 blue, 1 colorless. It's a legendary artifact creature. It's a robot dog. A 2/2. Whenever Rex Cyberhound deals combat damage to a player, they mill 2 cards and you get 2 energy counters. And it has pay 2 energy, choose target creature card in a graveyard, exile it with a brain counter on it, activate only as a sorcery. Rex has all activated abilities of all cards in exile with brain counters on them.
So instantly, this seems good because it has the Maresil / other Agatha Soul Cauldron kind of ability stapled on it. Being able to exile something from a grave. Is it just yours or is it any grave?
Any grave.
Okay, even better. I think Agatha's is just yours, isn't it?
Nope. Agatha's can exile any kind of card from any grave. This one can only.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because Agatha was kind of a grave hate thing. Either way, this can also be, grave hate. The major issue with this is that it's not the energy, it's not its abilities. It's that it's in fucking Azorius, which sucks. So, I mean, still to this day, I think the best Azorius commander of all time is Shorkai, because it just wins with a couple different things, whereas this has got more hoops. I do like that the energy production is repeatable every time you hit somebody with him. The problem is he's a 2/2, so like how far into the game are you still actually making? You're gonna have to be running stuff like there's like a couple 1-drop blue cards that give a creature unblockable for a turn. I can't think of any off the top of my head. You could also be running like Trailblazers boots or winged boots or other things that give him evasion plus like, maybe some power toughness modifiers. Those things will all help to ensure that you're continuously getting the energy that you need to be able to do the thing. I don't know exactly what you're looking for to build around to be the thing that you want in your grave that you can get out. But I feel, or not get out, but put the exile, put the counter on, and have the abilities for. I mean, we've done it with the Agatha Soul Cauldron with Francisco, but this is not the right color, so it's like, what? There's a thing there that has to exist that's what you're going for. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Well, I can tell you. So shout out to my buddy Chris who brewed this, played this, and I was skeptical, and now I have lost to this more times than I care to admit. It is a great Hullbreaker horror outlet in a weird kind of way, because there are enough enter the battlefield, get energy effects that are low CMC in blue and in white or in colorless that can kind of take advantage of that. So there are ways to get energy there. It's an artifact, so you can transmute this into your Mesmeric Orb and do the whole Mesmeric Orb Basalt Monolith mill yourself, and then you can get enough energy usually to either do Emery, so then you can cast an artifact from your grave, or you can exile your Walking Ballista and do other weird shit.
I mean, I suppose if you can self-mill yourself to a point where you can cast Thassa's, that works too.
Yeah, I have definitely lost to this. It does weird stuff. So, but yeah, he and I both agree there needs to be some more energy support to really push this to
I think so,
more competitive level, but it is a pretty cool one.
It's unique enough, and I like that whole being able, and especially if you can hit anybody's grave, you can take other people's things that have activated abilities and get good stuff going on. It's just like Maresil was, it never really had a competitive deck either, but I had some friends that played it, and it's Grixis. So it's just like you have just all of the good options where your commander doesn't fucking matter, and then you can also just cage dumb shit that like again, it's been so long since I played those against those decks that I don't remember all the things. I just remember like some really dumb cards you would never play in CDH, but they like played them because they could cage them and then have that ability, and there was no detriment to them, and they could activate it and do shit to you where you're like, dude, this sucks. So, and it's just, again, all the best colors. Whereas this is Azorius, so you're looking at either, doing self-mill to Thassa's or potentially stealing other people's pieces to then make a win con. I don't know.
One of the really gross things this does with the self-mill aspect is mill your library down, and then you do the whole energy thing and exile your Ariok salvagers, and then boom, you've got build the Bomberman in your command zone kind of combo.
Sure.
Which is pretty gross. Definitely lost to that. It does some strange stuff. You can transmute this. You can also Oswald Fiddlebender this into the One Ring because it's a 4-drop artifact. Sure. This is a 3-drop artifact. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. Again, I've lost to it.
I think more energy stuff. I remember some of the busted shit that came out with Kaladesh was like Aetherworks Marvel and some other stuff, and I can't remember what those cards do at this point. I also remember like some Colossus thing or Pummeler or something where it was like the more energy you pumped into it, the bigger it got, so it could be like a finisher kind of deal, but I don't know that any of that's really competitively viable. What my wish would be is that you could make this guy like blue and red, and then make that Cogsworth have partner, and then you'd have Jeskai, and then you could do proper breach lines and other things and have good win cons and just have his abilities there, but then you have Codsworth that gives him Ward 2 and then can also attach auras for free, so that maybe there's some other shit you could do with that. Like, I don't know. I feel like Codsworth not being... We were going to talk about him. We cut him from the list, but I feel like he should have been a fucking partner. Fight me.
Well, I don't know the lore of Fallout. Again, you told me what I know about it, and that's my limited knowledge about
Codsworth was, at least in the beginning of Fallout 4, you start in your house, and a guy comes from Vault-Tec to try to sell you on your membership to a vault, and Codsworth is your, like, maid, essentially. It's a floating robot with a lot of arms, and he comes up and he gives you coffee and blah, blah, blah. You're talking to your wife, and etc. And then the guy's at the door, and he's like, hey, he's trying to sell shit. And then you see flashes in the fucking background, and nuclear war is happening, and you have to rush to your Fallout shelter, and then years pass, and do. Anyhow.
Fair enough. Well, whoever designed this at Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, whoever the hell is on the design team that came up with this and dog meat, how dare you not give us companion? How dare you? That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
So, moving on. What's up next? We've got
another Azorius.
Yeah. This is Arcade Ganon. Two colorless, a white and a blue. He's a 2/3 legendary creature, human doctor, and he's got tap, draw a card.
How does he not have Doctor's Companion? What the hell?
I'm telling you, right? What the hell is that shit? But he's got your loot, not your rummage. So draw a card, then discard a card. Put a quest counter on him. And for Old Lang Syne, Jesus. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an artifact or a human spell from your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of quest counters on Arcade Ganon. So, ta-da, we found a perfect Azorius ISO-Rev commander. There you go.
I mean, yes, he's another ISO-Rev outlet in Azorius. But outside of that, I like him because it's not card advantage, but it is card selection out of the command zone. He doesn't cost a whole lot, so Jeweled Lotus plus 1 land gets him out turn 1. And then turn 2, you're already check you're looting, so you're able to get into other options more quickly. But then the very first time you do this, you get a quest counter. Well, maybe the thing you draw is whatever, but the thing you discard is a 1-drop. So you just say, like, you played turn 1, land, Jeweled Lotus, sack the Lotus, tap the land, play him, turn 2, draw, play another land, tap him, draw a card, discard a 1-drop, like a Soul Ring, and then play the Soul Ring. And then, the next turn you're always digging a little farther than your opponents, and you get to control what you discard. And as long as you're discarding stuff that is the same CMC as his quest counters, you're able to play them.
And you can play anything from your grave, so it doesn't even have to be the same turn you discarded it, which is kind of nice.
Well, it's not anything. It is only humans or artifacts.
I mean, an artifact or human spell, but like if you just discard a Grand Abolisher on turn 1, and then or the first turn you activate
you can
cast your Grand Abolisher
as soon as your shit lines up
at the time you discard it, right? Yeah,
right. So I mean, there are some. We're reaching here as far as like, oh, this is super good. It's not super good, but it is something that we look for in CDH commanders. Does it have some sort of draw cards in your command zone? Does it give you some sort of advantage? This is kind of not giving you an advantage because of the discard clause, but it is giving you the advantage that if you're discarding humans or artifacts, you're able to then play them later. It's not terrible, but it's not great, and I'm not excited about it. It was just one of those ones where it's like, this is serviceable. You could make a deck out of this. It's not. The only thing it's providing out of the command zone as far as combo goes is the ISO-Rev stuff, and that's boring, but it is a thing. I mean, arguably, that's kind of what Shorekai does, too, to a degree. Just Shorekai's not a creature, so harder to remove, which makes him a little better, but I don't know. Not a lot else to say about it. I suppose you want to run a bunch of artifacts and a bunch of humans, and I mean, there's synergy and support for all of that. You could probably do, outside of that, maybe do some turn spell stuff. I don't know. Again, not super exciting, but we had to reach to even get 10 here, so I think we can move on unless you got something else to say.
I got nothing to say about Arcade Ganon. He's I wouldn't be ashamed to play him, but I sure wouldn't be excited. There we have it. Going to the non-commanders, we'll start with this red enchantment, Wild Wasteland. 1 red, 2 colorless. Skip your draw step. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn.
I'm pretty high on this one. For a couple decks in particular, it may not be something you want in every deck that's red, but Prosper wants this. Prosper absolutely loves this because you're not getting your draw step, but you are getting an impulsive draw at the beginning of your turn. And if you cast anything from that, you're getting treasures from Prosper. And then at the end step, you're also exiling shit with Prosper and then further getting more treasures. So it helps to just fuel the stormy part of Prosper, which you may or may not be playing it that way. I play it with some storm elements to where I can have, those bonus round turns and cast and copy and do and get more impulsive draw and yada yada. I also think it's really good in Circara, which Joey's the only person I know that plays it, but Circara wants impulsive draw just the same as anybody else. So
I actually like it in Circara. Maybe thinking back on it, I like it in Prosper because obvious reasons, but it's a little scary being locked out by an opponent's Drannith Magistrate, whereas Circara has just a shit ton of burn that can just burn that little thing down. So yeah, I think it's a fine card. I think it'll definitely see quite a bit of play.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
if you happen to get all milled out, you don't lose because you don't draw. So there you go.
I mean, yeah, skipping your draw step is bad, but in these couple of decks, really good. I could see there's got to be other decks that would care about this and wouldn't mind, but those were the obvious answers to begin with. What's next?
Up next, we have. I'm going to mess this up royally. I don't know if it's VATS or if it's VATS.
It's VATS.
Again, I don't know the lore. Okay, VATS it is. 2 black and 2 colorless, instant. And Islaine was kind enough to explain the artwork, so now I finally understand it. Split second, and it says, choose any number of target creatures with equal toughness. Destroy the chosen creatures. So any number can be 0 to infinity and
Beyond.
Universes beyond. But yeah, so this is it's 4 mana removal with split second that can maybe kill one thing, can maybe kill a whole bunch of things.
So this is kind of a pseudo board wipe. For the VATS part, for lore purposes, as I explained to Kirk, and it shows it in the artwork. You'll see this on screen when I edit the podcast here, but basically there's some percentage points based on locations on a body. So when you're in the game, you activate VATS, and it shows you. It basically slows time down, shows you a scan of the creature that you're pointing at, creature, human, robot, whatever the fuck it may be. It says, percentage to hit the head, arm, this, that, the other thing, and you make your choices based on your percentages. And if you want to shoot them in the leg, maybe they fall. Shoot them in the arm, maybe they're disarmed, whatever. You make those selections. You have a certain amount based on, I don't remember the stat in the game, but there's a stat that affects how many times you can shoot while in the system. And then you exit, and then it goes, and you shoot all those points. In the artwork, it's kind of reflected in the same way. The card itself kind of reflects that too, because a split second in the game, people can't react to you doing the VATS and shooting. So split second, same thing, they can't react. And being able to hit multiple targets all at once kind of lends itself to the lore. So I think it was a pretty well-designed card. I hate that it's 4 mana. I wish it was 3. Because I think then it would be a very much better shoe-in. But people play Damnation. Damnation hits all creatures, including your own. This doesn't hit your creatures, so maybe better than Damnation. The issue is needing an equal amount of toughness. But if there's somebody out there that's creating tokens of any sort, 1/1s, 2/2s, 3/3s, whatever the fuck, they have a ton of them, you can hit all of them. And then also everything else. So in a typical game, you're probably going to have at least a couple 2/2s on everybody's board. So you're going to hit 6 creatures at, most of the time. Sometimes you might only hit 1 creature, and that sucks. 4 mana, kill 1 creature, that's terrible. 4 mana, kill 6 creatures, not so bad. 4 mana, kill a number of 1/1s that just got created from a Kiki Jiki line, and they've stopped, they've declared combat. You go split second, fuck your whole board, not bad. So 4 mana again is rough. I think the split second is what sells it. I hate that it has to be equal toughness, but it is what it is. You have to have some limitations.
We talked a little bit about in the world of Orcish Bowmaster Fear, a lot of people are afraid to play 1 toughness creatures. You're going to see more Delighted Halflings and what's the green-black elf 1/2 guy, and maybe
Deathrite Shaman.
You're going to see Deathrite Shamans. So you're even going to see even a lot a dorks.
Even Dockside's 1/2.
Yeah. You're going to see commanders with
Ornithopters a 0/2.
Yeah, and so you're going to see
you got a Yuriko that's a 1/3, and a Drannith that's a 1/3, and a that's a 3/. You hit a bunch of things all at once. It's gonna come in handy, I think.
There's a very good chance that you're going to get a minimum of 2 things, minimum of 1 thing sometimes, but sometimes there's just a commander you got to kill. Having split seconds really nice, and that is exactly what sells this as a possible try. This is one we're not sure we'll ever see play. But hey, we might. We might try it in a couple decks just to see what it does.
Fuck, dude. Just hitting a Seedborn might be enough.
Yeah, having this not uncounterable, but more or less uncounterable is pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I skipped over it completely, but when you brought it up, I was like, yeah, I could see cases where this works, because I would say that the majority of creatures played in the format are 1, 2, and 3/. And you're going to have a multitude of those on the board at one time when you cast this. And maybe the shit that you're targeting on other people's boards you don't care about. You really only care about that Grand Abolisher. But you're also killing a Dockside and a fucking Ewit and this and that and the other thing. So, who cares? You're getting extra value.
If you point at the one thing you really need to remove, and as you said, as a splash effect, you can kill a couple other things, that's great.
It's gravy.
Just being uncounterable, and as we move to more and more of this mid-range meta, having uncounterable answers is good. If I have to cast this to kill a freaking 7/8 Hullbreaker horror, and there's no other 8 toughness creatures on the battlefield, I'm not going to feel too bad about it because I killed the fucking Hullbreaker horror. So,
people were making arguments just recently within the last like 6 months about I don't remember the name of it. It's a green card. It's got split second. It costs 2 and a green, and it destroys or exiles artifact or enchantment. But the split second,
Frozen Grip.
yeah, Croson Grip. Yep, that's the one. We used to play it a lot, and then eventually it was like, why play this when I could just play a Nature's Claim? But Croson Grip has that split second, and a lot of people are arguing like that's still worth it because you can do it on like a breach, and just they can't do anything about it. And in that regard, I agree. It's probably better, but I'm still not playing it because just generally there's enough interaction in the format where the breach gets countered or it gets blown up immediately or, a dress down comes down that stops whatever creatures kind of thing that they're trying to do or whatever. Like there's enough interaction that Crossing Grip I still don't feel is good enough. But this having the split second and being a pseudo board wipe that doesn't affect you, because in black, you're either playing Damnation, or if you happen to have white, you're playing Dam, or you're playing Deluge. And that's pretty much it. If you're in blue, you have Psych Rift. If you're in white, maybe you're playing Winds of Abandon, maybe Wrath of God, probably not. I don't even see Damnation get played all that much anymore. But generally speaking, it's like those few, and all of those affect your own creatures. This is a potential wipe out everything that matters and not affect yourself. And it's uncounterable. Like, holding up 4 mana, kind of rough, but
I can see this
I don't know.
in a world of like I said, when we're playing the Final Word Phantom and maybe in a flashed in Nimrus style deck, maybe where you're not running a ton of creatures and you have a few flex slots, maybe this is something to try.
I think I'm going to experiment with it in a couple lists, but I don't know if it's going to end up being as high value as we think it might be, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it because just not being able to stop it and the potential for multiple creatures dying is pretty good. There's a lot of scenarios where this just fucking wipes the board.
I might consider this in my Marvo list just because it's something I can clash into and cast for free, and that's pretty busted. So
yeah, might as well. All right, we got a couple left. What's next? Nuclear Fallout. This is another one that we think might be one of the better cards in the deck. Or in the set.
Pretty damn good. So if you want removal, this is it. Nuclear Fallout, 2 black and X. Sorcery. Each creature gets twice -X until end of turn. Each player gets X rad counters. So again, this is probably a replacement. What's the 4 mana -4/-4? Is that Languish?
I don't even know. Sounds about right, but I'm not sure. This feels like just sort of better Deluge. Outside of Deluge is you pay life, so that sometimes makes it better. If you're in a deck where maybe you don't want to pay the life, this is better. I don't know. The twice X is a lot. Like, it ends up being, what, like 5 CMC to blow up 4 toughness, everything?
So 3 would kill 2 drops, 4 would kill 4 drops, 5 would kill 6 drops, or 6 toughness. So yeah, if you spend 3, you're getting double X, so you're killing everything with 2 toughness. If you spend 4, you're killing everything with 4 toughness. Spend 5, you're killing everything with 6 toughness. So it's pretty decent. I mean, it scales really well.
Deluge is 3, and you got to pay life on top of it. So
right.
It is still, unlike the last card we talked about, this is still affecting your own creatures, but usually you're casting board wipes when you either don't care about what creatures you have or you're so far behind that you're just trying to equalize. The rad counters is also kind of a benefit, just because you mill out stuff that they want.
So this I was gonna say, this is really nice in an ad nos deck where you don't want to have to pay the life for Toxic Deluge maybe, but you're looking for a sweeper. You can nos into this and it's only 2 pips instead of 3, so you're losing less life right away, which is nice. I mean, that's why some of those play Dam instead, right? Mm-hmm. And this one also has the weird advantage of it's an infinite mana win con. If you have infinite mana, you cast it where X is 1 billion, you don't give a crap what dies, you get all the rad counters that everybody else gets too, but then you pass the turn and then rad counter kill happens, right?
Yeah.
So this can be,
a Wrath,
Isorev,
Scepter, So I didn't even think of that. That is pretty cool. I was already there with it just being the twice X and being cheap to board wipe, but then I didn't think about the ability to, if you're already in an ISO Rev combo list, this I should put this in Raul. Why didn't I put this
Shit,
in Raul?
maybe, yeah.
Like
Just
this belongs right
thematically it
there.
fits.
Like yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, seems strong, and I didn't even think about the rad counter thing. But if you are making infinite mana, you just won the game on top of wiping the entire board.
Yep. This one has a
Not
weird
bad.
neat advantage too. You can spell seeker this up because it's a sorcery with a 2 CMC. So
Mm.
you need to go dig in for your wrath. Spell seeker can find this. It can't find toxic deluge. So.
If it's a sorcery, it also can get hit with personal tutor, which we don't run a lot, but sometimes you do. And then obviously any of the black tutors will get it. You also have the what's the 3-drop blue tutor from Strixhaven.
Solve the equation.
Solve the equation.
I was gonna say you actually mentioned one earlier that makes me think of this what is it? Muddle the mix.
Muddle the mixture
for this too.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I run Muddle the mixture in almost every blue list because there's almost always a 2-drop that you want, and if there's not, it's a fucking counterspell, and that's great.
I love that card, and now you can run it as not only it's a counterspell, it can dig up a wrath removal spell or an infinite mana win con removal spell right here. This card's nuts. The more we're talking about it, the more I'm excited to go jam this in a buttload of decks.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to put in Raul right now. All right, we got a couple left. Let's jam them out.
You got it. We've got Grim Reaper's Sprint. Okay, this one red and 4, and an aura, an enchantment aura. It's got Morbid. It costs 3 less to cast if a creature died this turn. Being a creature aura, it's an enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, untap each creature you control. If it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2, and haste. So this is a way to get a second combat step for 1 red and 1 colorless. +2/+2 and haste. If something died. Well, if it didn't die, if something didn't die, you can still cast this for 5.
You could cast this for 5, and it's just an extra combat phase. But notably, if the creature you're enchanting does something else, it's now getting haste. So I feel so Kiki Jiki already has haste. What other cards like Felidar doesn't have haste, but that doesn't matter. There's something I'm not piecing it together right this instant, but there's something here where you can do something to make sure a creature died. Then you cast this, and it only costs you the 1 red and 1, and then this ETBs hits a creature that needs the haste for some reason. That you mostly the haste, and then you use that to keep going. But I'm thinking of the creatures that I can think of that need haste or that do extra combat, like Combat Celebrant. Kiki Jiki is another one that helps with that. There's Rionia, and then there's that Phalanx. All of those don't need haste to.
Right.
I just know people were super hyped on this, and I saw people talking about it, but I didn't catch what the end goal was. Just having a 2 mana extra turn and giving something haste that maybe needs it or extra combat, and giving something haste that you might need the haste for is pretty good on its own. But this could also be put in your dog meat list because it's an aura. Could be something you mill and get back and get an extra combat.
Yeah, I might try this in something with Displacer Kitten, because you could cast this for 2, get your extra combat, cast something, flicker this with your Displacer Kitten, get another combat, etc., etc. So
sure, yeah, there's got to be ways that this can be broken. Anytime that there's something that's extra turn or extra combats, usually there's a way to break it. I'm just not thinking of it off the top of my head, but I think even at bare minimum floor, you cast a creature that doesn't have haste. You just cast a creature. It doesn't matter what it is. And then you also sacrifice a creature for whatever reason. Maybe a Deadly Dispute. You sack a creature that was already on the field. You draw a couple cards, whatever. Maybe this is the card you drew, and then you're like, okay, cool. Now this other creature that I cast doesn't have haste, but I can cast this for 2 and give it haste, and then also get the extra combat. I don't know.
I mean,
Might even
I
be
could see
okay
some
in
doing some dumb
Winota.
crap with,
This actually feels like it might be good in Winota in the sense of like I attacked with stuff and then something got blocked and died, but then I flash this in. It's not flash. Second main doesn't matter. So second main, cast this on whatever, and then get an extra attack.
yeah.
For Winota, that's pretty busted. For Nagila, that's pretty busted.
This is probably super easy to play on in a Dargo deck.
Oh yeah,
Cast Dargo,
yeah.
you can definitely
Jesus
sack a
Christ.
creature, right? So
Yeah,
I don't know.
not hard. It's got some application. I feel like there's some way to make this infinite, but I'm not exactly sure what it is.
I'm sure if we could definitely go down some convoluted lines and get there, but I'm sure there's probably a quote unquote easy button that would make it happen. But this one's an interesting one. And 2 mana plus 2 in haste, untap everything and get an extra combat phase. I think 2 mana is the cheapest I can think of for this effect for your entire board. It's not just one creature, right? So
Yeah, I mean, most of the, there's the Relentless Assault, but that's like 5 mana to get the extra combat. Most of the creatures require them to be able to attack, so they usually take more than a turn.
Like 3 mana. So
I mean, you could use this on a combat celebrant if you cast it and then didn't exert it, I guess. No, you could even exert it, get the combat, and then do this, and then get another combat, but that's not infinite.
I mean, what's that little green wall that you can sack for 2 red? There you go. Boom. This
Tinder
is
wall. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So
yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can do stuff with it, but like again, at the very floor, just getting a 2 mana extra combat, sometimes that's enough to get whatever other triggers you have going on or other things on your board state that might push you over the top.
Yeah, and in a weird way, this is, I mean, at its worst case scenario, it's a 5 mana extra combat step card that gives your creature a permanent +2/+2, right? That's not, if most of them already cost 4 or 5 to cast anyway, hey, this is that with an upside. So
it's on par because like I think Relentless Assault is 4, but like all the rest of them are like 5. Most of the creatures are 4 or 5, so yeah, I mean it's on par with mostly everything that's already happening. So if you're playing these effects, you're probably playing this. And I'm sure somebody has already figured out how to break it. It's not us, but, whatever. We've got one more.
Oh, and this one, what a one to finish on. Good grief. This is Nuka-Cola vending machine. I don't know what Nuka-Cola is, but I could guess some Fallout Nuka-Cola, right? The Coca-Cola of the future where everything's radiated.
I do believe it has some sort of radiation factor in it, but yeah, it's essentially your Coca-Cola of the future, yeah, in an alternate timeline.
Or Pepsi if you're into that sort of thing. I'm a Dr.
You don't. I'm a Dr. Pepper guy too, but you don't drink Jack and Pepsi. You drink Jack and Coke. Just gonna say that.
Amen, brother. Amen. So this one's Nuka-Cola vending machine, 3 colorless artifact. It has tap 1 and tap it, create a food token. Whenever you sacrifice a food, create a tapped treasure token.
I liked it initially when you pointed it out just because anytime you sack a food, you get a treasure. And there has been, we've talked about this a couple times in past shows, where food was just dog shit. It was never really good. And nobody cared about it. And then eventually it got to the point where, like, I think it was Lord of the Rings, where really kind of pushed it over the top with Peregrine Took and Samwise and a few other things. Cauldron Familiar had been around since Eldraine, and there was some stuff you could do with foods, which still applies, but was never great. But then in this instance, it's like, okay, well, now you're getting foods, and you're sacking your foods to gain some life, but then you're getting a treasure in return. And then if you add shit like Academy Manufactor, well, now you got that treasure, but you also got a food and clue. And if you're adding the Peregrine, you're getting an extra food. And I think Samwise is also an extra food. Like, there's a bunch of shit now to where, like, this can snowball out of control. And I'll let you take it away because you know a little bit more about some of the combos. But
so, I mean, I don't want to go through all the combo lines because there's far too many. But as you kind of pointed out, like Peregrine Took is a classic example. Peregrine Took, and I'll pull him up so I get it proper here. He is 3 for a 2/3. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead, and it has sack 3 foods, draw a card. So if you have Peregrine Took and Nuka-Cola vending machine in play, you tap Nuka-Cola to make a food. Peregrine Took would trigger, you would make an additional food token. Then if you can do it another time, you have 4 food tokens. Sack 3 foods, draw a card. Well, whenever you sacrifice a food to the because of Nuka-Cola's static ability, you create a tap treasure token. And whenever you create a treasure token or any token with Peregrine Took, you create a food. You get the idea. You can draw your entire freaking library. It's ridiculous, right?
And that's in mono green, which is already like just like just imagine it. Like that's why I brought up Samwise too, because I know he's pull him up real quick because I don't remember his exact wording. It was Samwise. I think it was Samwise Gamgee. Was the Selesnya one?
Yep. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token. And it has sacrifice 3 foods, return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. So yeah, this one you play Peregrine Took, get 2 foods, and then boom.
Yeah, like you can have
4 foods. There you go.
You can have multiple colors where this will be a thing. I probably wouldn't play Peregrine just by himself in a mono green. I don't really like monocolor decks too much. I would probably lean more towards trying to play Samwise, or even a 3-color deck that maybe doesn't necessarily care about foods, but having all these pieces. Maybe having maybe like Abzan. I want to say there was an Abzan commander in Lord of the Rings that didn't necessarily care about food, but maybe helps enable some of this. But just being able to make those loops is crazy. But you also, like, half of it is just colorless stuff, like KCI and Academy Manufacturer and whatever.
Academy Manufacturer, Grinding Station, KCI. There's all sorts of weird combos that can be assembled in monocolor in colorless and artifacts. There's a shit ton of combos that can create infinite loops where you create infinite mana, infinite life, infinitely draw your deck. It's nuts. This card at face value, you're like, it's okay. You start digging into it. There's combos upon combos upon combos with this card.
At its absolute floor, you pay a mana, you make a food, right? It's tap 1, tap it, make a food. And then you sack the food later. If you're in blue and maybe you have that forensic gadgeteer that we talked about earlier, now your food's sacked for less, and then you're getting treasures on top of it. Like, it can make some pretty crazy loops pretty quick, and it's not hard to assemble. And a lot of it is like outside of creature removal, it's not really interactable. So like you can just start doing this, and people are like, "Well, all I have is counter spells, but I can't counter any of this. Like, what the fuck?" So
they can do some nutty stuff. I mean, it's definitely KCI's best friend.
I love that they're finally getting to a point where foods matter, because for so long foods were just like, why do I want to play anything that makes foods? This is stupid.
Right.
And then actually, I mean, just having, if you can be in Golgari, so I don't know what commander you would pick for that, but being able to have Peregrine and Calder Familiar, that alone is an infinite loop, because the Peregrine makes the extra food based on the... So you would basically... I don't know if that... Does that work? I don't know if that works, but... well, because Cauldron Familiar is like ETBs, it makes everybody lose a life, you gain a life, right? If you sacrifice a food, you can return it from graveyard to play. So it does it again. So you basically need a sack outlet for it, and then you also need something that's going to make those additional food. Basically, if you can make 2 foods a turn, which you can with Peregrine, you infinitely loop that. You just need a sack outlet.
There's some other goofy stuff like Experimental Confectioner. It's 1 black and 2 for a 2/3 human peasant, and it has enters the battlefield, creates a food token, and whenever you sacrifice a food, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this creature can't block. So you can make infinite rats, and there's all sorts of weird crap you can do with this card. It's one of those you read it, you're like, this is dumb. And you start digging in.
You also have like you also have a blood artist and an altar, and you sack those rats to just kill the table.
Or you have what's the little disciple? Is it disciple?
Symbol of the vault.
Yeah, boom.
That actually wins just with the Peregrine and the thing. Well, but you still need to be in Golgari at that point. I don't know what the Golgari. There's that chef like Guillaume or something. That's gonna drive me nuts. I'm gonna look it up because I'm sure that has something to do with foods. Yeah, Guillaume Master Chef. 5/3 trample, 2 black green. At the beginning of your end step, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of non-creature tokens you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn.
Oh, good
1
God.
sack of food, tap target creature gains indestructible. That doesn't matter. But just basically make foods based on creatures that entered. That's synergistic. You play this with Peregrine and the other this Nuka-Cola thing. Also, the cat and that other black creature you just mentioned. I think between all of those, you make a loop of just killing the table with what you got.
Yeah.
Also, the Disciple of the Vault. Yeah, like food is becoming a thing. Like it was really, really shitty when it got introduced, but it's been 3-4 years now, and they just keep adding to it, and it's gotten to a point where it's a thing, and it's.
I feel like they got scared with how good treasures were for a minute, so they tried to push away from that and try and catch up a little bit with food. Th're still not there yet. Treasure's still vastly more powerful.
Well, they only recently brought back
closer to Clue than it used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, Clue was kind of also one of those things. They only had it for a couple sets, and then they didn't touch it for a long time, and now they brought it back a bit, and it's not terrible, but I like that it draws you cards, but it's just like 2 mana to draw a card is just eh. Whereas some of these now are like you don't have to pay the mana, you just sack the thing. The junk tokens, especially, like you just sack it and get a thing, and being able to sack the foods without paying to draw cards is getting to a point where it's like, yeah, some of the stuff could be bad. I actually might try to build this guy because it feels like there's enough food synergy there that I might make something busted with this Master Chef.
That could be kick-ass. I'd like that.
Foods matter, bro. All right, well, that concludes what we thought was good from Karlov Manor and Fallout, and we've managed to go over 2 hours, longest episode so far. But
sorry, Chief.
We had to cover these things so that we can review it later. Speaking of reviews, at some point in the next, I don't know, month or two, we're probably going to do a revisitation of all the sets that we covered last year and see whether or not our opinions were correct. We've also got a deck tech for one of my long-running lists that we're going to do. We have one last episode of our listicle series, which was for the best lands in CDH. And then we had another episode about the stacks archetype. So we've got some stuff coming down the pipeline. We're hoping, I'm on vacation for the next week, so we're hoping to try and get a few episodes recorded so we're a little bit ahead of the curve. But that wraps this up. I don't know, any closing thoughts before we call it a day?
Nope. I'm just looking forward to seeing some of this stuff. I'm happy they've pumped the brakes a tiny bit on the sets. It feels like they come out, so it's been nice to catch your breath a little bit on that. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.